Good evening. Planning Board is now in session. Mr. Mills.
So it's with great sadness, I'd like the planning board to recognize that the end of January, Kate Madison, who was a member of the Historical Commission and Society, also a member of the CPC, which I sit on as a member of this board, passed away. She was a longtime member of the Historical and Commission and Society, and had done tremendous work on the CPC from a historical standpoint, and I think it only appropriate that we recognize her service to the town and her a great loss to both her family and to the town. Yeah, that's a motion.
Motion's been made.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Mills.
So, Mr. Chairman, with continued great sadness, I also want to make a motion that the planning board recognize Mr. John Wilson, who passed away on February 5th, who was the moderator for over 20 years, I believe.
24.
24 years. And then continue to serve in many positions within the town, along with as a veterans agent, and had contributed tremendously to the town throughout his years here. And that was a motion too.
Motion's been made
Second?
and seconded. Any discussion? I have just a couple of words on Colonel Wilson. I was able to attend the wake funeral mass the next day in the cemetery, followed by a nice get-together at the community house, and then later in the day at the Fayetteville Athletic Association. And it was during the mass that John's son, Tommy, spoke very eloquently and with great pride and honor and humor about John. And so I have no more words to add, and we'll miss him. Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? Very good. First item on the agenda tonight is a public hearing, 0 Furman Avenue, major site plan approval. This is a continued hearing from November 19th, December 17th, and January 7th. I'll ask the town planner to update us on where we are in this public hearing.
Okay, just before we start, I just want to point out that we do have a sign-in sheet up here at the desk for anybody who attends or speaks, so that we know who it is later if we have any missing information in the minutes. So we'd appreciate it if you haven't signed in, at least if you speak, to sign in for sure. Thanks. All right, for 0 Furman Ave, major site plan approval, the last meeting that was attended by the planning board was January 7th, and we continued to this evening with an extension request. In the meantime, Beals and Thomas, the applicant's engineer, has made a revised submission, which was distributed to the planning board members, various departments, and also Fuss and O'Neill, our town consultant, for review. We received some comments back from town departments, including feedback from the building inspector, Laurie Lavoli, who indicated that the lifestyle signs and the decals were to be considered as signs, in her opinion. That information was forwarded to the applicant team for their review. We also received comment from the Board of Health regarding a cafeteria concern from a prior site plan, and that was answered in that there is no cafeteria in this proposal. So that was good too. We received Fuss and O'Neill review comments. Those were submitted back to the applicant's team so that they could address those for this evening. And that brings us to tonight's meeting.
Great, thank you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Welcome back. If you could introduce yourselves, and whoever's going to speak can launch.
Brian Levy, attorney for Americo Real Estate.
Dan Feeney, civil engineer at Bales and Thomas.
So, Mr. Chairman, the only thing that I would add to Karina's summary is that we have already appeared before the Conservation Commission, which has granted us the stormwater management permit. When we were before you in January, which was our second session of the public hearing, this board voted unanimously to waive the LID special permit. Subsequent to that, the Beals and Thomas submission was made. Fuss & O'Neill provided its comments, and essentially the comments are, if you distill them down, the only sort of substantive comment left relates to signage. So tonight, we're going to have a brief update on civil. I can update you briefly on signage, and we have our fingers and our toes crossed that we may be able to conclude the substantive part of the hearing tonight.
Can you tell us where you are with Framingham?
Yes, so we were in front of Framingham last week, and the reason we went back in front of them was to show them the latest set of plans that we had shared with this board. They really had no comments on those. We also wanted to share with them a set of the signage plans, and they had really no comments on signage except to say that it was not within their jurisdiction to opine on signage, and they sent us to see the sign officer. We've been trying to see the sign officer, but we haven't been able to get into to see the sign officer. So that is where we are in Framingham. The hearing is technically open. We wanted to leave that open in case for some reason there were changes here. We wanted to make sure everybody's got the same sets of plans. So we have another date with them on February 21, but we're hoping it's not going to be very substantive, and we'll be able to close the hearing.
So you either feel comfortable with or prefer to have Southborough's approval first?
I think that would make sense because Framingham has really not been asking us to make any changes. It's really this board with the focus on the stormwater management that's really been the focus of all the substantive issues in the case.
Okay. All right.
So with that, I'll have Dan walk through the civil changes.
Very good.
I'll go up to the board just to be able to point at the changes. So at the request of the board, we did add a crosswalk and a sidewalk coming up the access drive for the parking that's in the front of the building. And as well as at the request of the board, we added some landscaping. So we added 4 trees, 2 up in the landscape island that had previously been created up here with the pavement removal, and then 2 down closer to the building. In addition to that, there's 17 shrubs that are proposed. So the trees are proposed to be Princeton elms, and the shrubs are proposed to be creeping junipers. You know, on the plan, you can see the sidewalk. On this sheet, it doesn't show up, but there is a slope from basically the edge of the curb in this area coming up, both down adjacent to the parking spots and up by the building. So by putting this sidewalk in, we are also putting in a small retaining wall. It's about 2.5 feet high. The alternative to that is to chase the grade, and you really never catch in. It's about a 3-to-1 grade consistently through here. So in order to avoid just chasing the grade all the way up to the building, we put in the small retaining wall. Anticipated to be a segmental block retaining wall, like a Versalock, and again, it's only 2.5 feet high, so it doesn't require any geogrid reinforcing at that height. We also did take a look at, there was a question on the gates and the riprap areas back here. As part of the deed, there is a drainage and slope easement off the property here. So the land used to all be part of the same property, and when it was broken out and conveyed, it was conveyed so that there's access back here. There's a flat area with a swale that pitches to the sides. So that access is provided for within the deed document. And it showed up, and it does show up on the Alta survey plans that were done by the surveyor record. There's a note on the plans regarding that. So our intention is to leave those gates in and the riprap just to provide for that slope protection. The only other really edit on the plans, the land disturbance area has increased slightly, again, associated with the sidewalk and retaining wall. The last set of plans, it was about 16,800 square feet, and it's up to 18,000 now, so it went up about 1,200 feet, which is the width of the sidewalk and retaining wall, as well as, this was already being disturbed, but some minor areas associated with some tree plantings. So it's a minor increase in the land disturbance area up to 18,000 square feet.
Very good. Thank you. Open it up to the board for questions. Mr. Mills?
So, first of all, thank you for putting in the sidewalk. I think, that would definitely help with the safety from my concern at night with trucks going in and out, and that being the main area for people to park or overflow for parking on that aspect. So the signs, I know I saw in the new set of plans, it doesn't have the big decals on the Southborough end.
That's correct.
So I know it wasn't brought up for those who might be watching, who remember from last time. Those are not on the plans going forward. So I think my main questions are answered. I think the chairman's probably going to bring up the question of the land to the west at some point, but I have no questions.
Thank you.
Mrs. Luttrell?
Good evening. Thank you for the trees. Is the land to the west parcel 5? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Should I save that for you?
No, go ahead.
So where are we with that? Is there going to be a conservation restriction put on it?
So first of all, let's look and understand what the property is we're talking about and what we're not talking about. And we provided you in this latest package with a portion of the alter plan. I think the best sheet to look at is AL1. Okay, so we can see the project site. There's a big building on it that says Lot C, right where the hand is there. And if we move to the left, you'll see the edge of the lot, and you'll see Lambs Hill Road. All the documents indicate that that is a public way. That is the boundary. That is the end of our property. That's not property that we own. We do not own that roadway. And then if you move to the left to the next lot, where it says Recreation Division of Water, Department of Conservation, that parcel which goes up and then down again around the triangle. So that's a big, sort of a big V parcel, upside down V. That is not my client's property. We do not own that property. That is Commonwealth's property. So what I believe we're talking about is the lot that says D on it, where the hand is right now, the triangle that fronts on Furman Avenue. That parcel is 1.75 plus or minus acres. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And from the Registry of Deeds, I have the recorded copy of the Planning Board's decision from 2014. And that decision granted, this is a special permit, the LID special permit in 2014. And that special permit approved a 63,000 square foot expansion to the existing building and an additional parking lot in the lot below south of Furman Avenue next to Crossing Drive. So this was like a max build-out plan of these parcels. And as part of that, as a condition of that, there were several conditions of that. So if you look at the board's decision, it says we're allowing the approval of this project subject to the following conditions: trees, lighting, traffic lights, bollard, signage. And then one of the other conditions was donating the 1.75 acres or putting a restriction on it. So the background here is that prior owner's dealings with this board called for the granting of the restriction or donating the land in connection with a huge max build-out project. All we're doing here is reusing the existing building. So with all due respect, we really don't think it's proportional to be asking us for a conservation restriction or whatever it is. The property is, if you look, you can see there's a notation on the plan about the edge of wetlands, and there's a big circle over Lot D, and most of the lot is actually wet. That doesn't mean it's undevelopable. I don't know whether it is or it isn't, quite frankly, but you know, here we are in 2019. The client is not prepared to take that 1.75 acres and put a CR on it when we're merely, you know, rehabbing the interior of the building. If in the future there's some additional project that the client wants to do, and I don't know that there is anything on the drawing board, I don't think that there is, that will certainly be part of a discussion. But today, we just don't think that that's a proportional ask.
So the reason I ask is not because of the other site plans. It's because back in 1985, there was a promise made to the town in exchange for the planning board supporting a zoning change from residential to industrial, that lot would have a CR placed on it. And that covenant is filed with the Registry of Deeds, so when your client bought the property, I think they knew about it, and I think that it's time to fulfill that promise.
So I've looked at that document as well from 1985, and that prior owner made a series of promises in connection with that zoning amendment. I don't know which, if any of them, were ever fulfilled. I don't know what has happened over the past 35 years to the benefit of that bargain. What went on back and forth between that owner and this town, I have no idea.
Well,
what has happened.
there's an office building there, not a house.
Understood.
So they
but-
got their part.
Yes, but I don't know, there were several components to that document. If you look at it, which I'm sure you have, there are several promises that were made by that owner 35 years ago, and I don't know what was done and what was not done. The other thing I'll note on that, and I'm not quibbling with you, I understand what you're saying. It says what it says. But the other thing that I find a little bit curious is that the lot area that's referred to in that document is not the same as the lot area in Lot D. So there's something different that's going on, and I don't know what happened over the last 35 years. So I wouldn't say to my client, you're under an obligation because of that prior document to to make that conveyance or restriction, I forget what it was, but I just don't think that that's fair 35 years later to do that. And I don't know that it's the same parcel, and I don't know what has happened over that 4 decades.
Well, the way I see it is that there was a zoning change there, and the town was to get a CR on that portion, and we don't have that CR on that portion, but the zoning change was made. There's an office building there. It's not a house. It's not residentially zoned. So, and there's a covenant on file with the Registry of Deeds. It's known that there should have been a conservation restriction on it. I'm not holding you to all the other conditions there. You don't have to reduce the size of the building. But I think that the conservation restriction should be placed on that parcel.
I hear you, and I've read the document, and I just don't see that there's, I'm not here to make a legal argument. That's really not the point. I mean, to me, the point is, and I've dealt with clients like this on many instances like this where it makes some sense to either put a no-build restriction on something or a buffer zone or a restriction. It makes sense in certain contexts. The larger context here is we're taking the existing building and we're rehabbing the interior of it. And this town is protected because it's resource areas. All that will require permitting. If there's any construction that wants to go on there, there are several boards that are going to have jurisdiction over that. So it's not like the client can go in and put something up there. There's ample protection for the town.
I just think that the parcel was purchased. This is on file. It says there should be a CR on it, so there should be a CR on it. That's my opinion. That's all I have.
Mr. Jenks?
Do you have an opinion as to whether that runs with the land or not?
That's a good question, and there are a number of obligations that are in that you're talking about the 1985
Yes.
covenant? Yeah. It's really hard to answer that. So, for example, there's a condition here about being required to hire an engineer and get funds from the DCR. So there's like a whole smorgasbord of things that were happening back in 1985. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, the covenant runs with the land. I understand that there was some sort of obligation there. I mean, there was clearly a quid pro quo going on. I understand that. I'm not denying that.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend we seek an opinion from Aldo on that.
Town planner and I were just
Just writing it up, huh?
anticipating your comment, which, if the rest of unless there's an objection from the rest of the board, we'll submit these documents to the town council and get his opinion and be guided by it.
So would we wait to vote until we got town council's opinion, or would it be a condition upon waiting on town council's opinion? Because I think that's the applicant's next question.
Well, it would seem that information received from council should be received and be available to the public during the public hearing. So in order for us to vote tonight, we'd have to close the public hearing, which would then probably be inappropriate for us to receive additional information before we vote.
Agreed.
So it would seem that with this item open, we would ask to continue the public hearing, ask town council to take a look at this stuff and guide us, and then come again. Our next planning board meeting is
25th.
February 25th.
May I ask, Mr. Chairman, I understand this is an important issue. Are there other open issues with the board? Or is that the single remaining issue that we have? Because I think we've answered everybody's other questions.
Sure, we're working our way toward that. Were you all set then, Mr. Jenks?
Yes.
So, you had that list, Karina.
Oh, from the last meeting?
Yeah, where
Or
was,
the
there was a email that you were pointing
Oh,
to.
right here. Hold on. I have it here. Oh, too much paperwork. Hold on. It's right here. There it is.
No, we'll try to cover as much as
Sure.
we possibly can. We're not gonna send you on your way and then pick up
Right.
with, we'll try to get everything we can resolved.
Great.
That's the email.
So we had some notes from the last meeting. One was to consult with the building inspector relative to the signs. We have that, and that's consistent with the board's opinion about the murals and the size of the signs and the locations on the building within the town of Southborough. Did you go over that? You didn't go over the,
No, we haven't gone over signs. I can. Would you like me to do that now?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so basically, it actually boils down pretty simply now. We have on the west elevation, there's one wall sign.
Can you show us that?
It would
Is it on
be-
the plan?
Yes,
It
it's
is.
on the plan. It's on sheet 2.
Of the signage package.
There it is. So there's the one wall sign. It's 45 square feet. 50 is the limit. So that, I would say that is a conforming sign. We have on sheet 9, and they're not numbered, so, there you are. PDF is numbered, okay. If you go to the next sheet, we have one freestanding sign, and that sign is less than, on the next page, you can see the dimensions. It's less than the 75 square feet, and it is no taller than 15 feet. So we have designed that to be a complying freestanding sign. So we have that one.
And its location is in Southborough?
Southborough.
Okay.
Yes. So we have that freestanding sign. We have, from this package, we removed all of the community graphics from the Southborough portions of the building. So the only thing that, if you go to the page 1 of the, so the only thing that is still in Southborough, sort of the left side of the building, you can see the colored decals on the windows, and we did receive from Karina the letter from the building commissioner saying that he or she, I forget which one it was.
Lori Lavoli,
The
right,
new-
she
the
sent
new
an
one.
email
The new
answering.
one, okay.
Yeah.
The new building commissioner said that those are, she would consider those signs. The letter that we got did invite us to have a further conversation, which we haven't been able to have because apparently she's been out of the office. So we'd like to have that conversation, but we don't need to, for our purposes, we need to leave this open for that. Whatever letter you folks write to the zoning board or the planning board or the building commissioner about what your report is on signage, it'll say what it'll say. And we'll have a conversation with the building commissioner, and she will say what she's going to say. So that's sort of the only, I would call, open issue, even though I understand that you have opined on it through the building commissioner. And that's the summary.
I think one of the homework assignments was the pictures of the site from Carriage Hill.
There it is.
Now, that's completely lit, right? Not just with, is that,
Yes.
compared to, I know we talked about having minimal lights at night for safety reasons, but that's completely lit up. So that's as bright as it would be if someone was in there mulling around at 10 o'clock at night.
Any questions or comments on that? Mr. Jenks?
I want to back up just a minute to the colored panels. I'm not sure I understood. Did the building commissioner say those are signs?
Yes. So the question we would have is, if I just took a paintbrush,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be a sign. So I question that conclusion, and we want to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Phil, from my experience on the board, with these type of things, that interpretation from the building inspector is consistent with previous proposed signs where the colors, the corporate colors, when people see those colors, they don't need to necessarily see the words. They act somewhat as a sign. So that interpretation, at least if it was different, I would wonder what had changed.
So if they had, what's the material under the paint? Is that glass or is
Those are windows, yes.
the existing glass windows?
Yes.
Yeah. So if they put a piece of plywood over that and painted it, that would be a sign too?
Depends on the color.
Okay.
The color was, I mean, I didn't make this up.
I
It's
understand.
been my experience that if the color is associated with the product or the business, then it's interpreted as drawing the attention to it.
Got it.
So again, that'll be part of, I guess, a future discussion, you said with the building inspector.
We would ask that question, yes.
And then the other homework assignment was the steel gates and the riprap, and you explained that. So the town planner has, what we try to do is draft conditions of approval and hope that that are consistent with the discussion during the whole hearings, and then share those with you so that you get a chance to, refine them or object to them or add to them. And we haven't sent those to you yet, correct?
Understood. No, that is correct.
So I think what we'll do is while we're, if we're able to continue the hearing, give those to you so that you'll have a chance to, see the list of conditions that should be consistent with all of our discussions. And then there may be additional, conditions depending on how we're advised by council and how the discussion goes with the signs.
Right, so let me ask you, is it going to be feasible, realistic, for the town council to turn around with this memo by the 25th?
I have no idea.
And,
We're backing up right to our Springtown meeting,
which is,
the end of March 23rd. There's 42 warrant articles, which is kind of a high number for us, that he has to review.
right,
So this is kind of his busy time.
right. So if the town council is not able to opine on the restriction by the 25th, what would happen?
We would discuss that tonight with the next date that the planning board would meet, which would be after February 25th. March 11th. So what we would, I guess, recommend is that you request an extension. Currently, the approval period ends on February 15th, which is Friday. So you would request an extension tonight to the next.
And then ask for another one?
No, this is for the approval period, so it would be the Friday after the Monday. So the Monday is February 25th. That Friday would be March 1st. So you would request an extension of the approval period to March 1st.
Right.
If town council didn't give us the information in sufficient time for you and/or us to look at, then, consistent with our discussion tonight, you would come in on February 25th and request another extension, or not, and have the board vote, same as tonight. Or, and Mr. Jenks will probably help me with this, if we don't get that information that we need in time, then if you agreed to that tonight, that you wouldn't have to come in on the 25th, but submit in writing a request, and then when the board met for that portion of the continued public hearing, we would show the public that we have a request for an additional extension. The board would vote on that, and then hopefully it would pass, and then you wouldn't have to come in until March 11th. So the extension would, the second extension would
to
be the
following
Friday. Yes.
Okay, if I could have 2 or 3 minutes to talk to my client, make a game plan, come back, and we'll set it up.
Hold on one second. I just want to ask the board if what I just said sounds okay. Mr. Mills?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Mrs. Latrell? Okay. Now, we have someone from the Open Space Commission that, right, you want to speak, Freddie? So, do you want to take the huddle now, or do you want to see what she has to say?
Yes, we'll hear what the member has to say.
Hi, Freddie Gillespie, Chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission, and, sorry for this, but, can I move it?
Yep.
Sorry. So I apologize for coming in at the tail end of this, but the hearing's still open, so I thought we could. My commission has had some quorum issues, and we've got a lot of work to catch up on. We just met this afternoon to go over this project, and so this is in relationship to the plantings, and I apologize if maybe the plan I'm looking at isn't the most recent one, but I see that on the Framingham side, it says proposed landscaped open space, and then on the other side is the Southborough portion of the lawn, which I'm looking at is some portion of this. So first question is that to be left the way it is today, or is there new planting going on for that lawn area? Or is it just the Framingham side that's going to be landscaped?
There's proposed landscaping in both Framingham and Southborough. The latest set of plans added landscaping in Southborough, a total of 4 trees and 17 shrubs.
So, thank you. My question is more to do with what's shown here as grassy area. As the planning board is well aware, and anyone who's been watching your hearings, the Open Space Commission has been recommending that the preference or recommendation for native plants extends not just to trees and shrubs, but to ground covers. And we just had a long, lengthy process for a project on Northborough Road that came out very successfully, with all of the ground cover being native species and no artificial, not artificial, but no non-native grass or turf. And that is the standard we're going to be asking for from now on. I don't think I need to go in tonight, but I'll be happy to go over it with you later if you wish, on the reasons why that is scientifically and environmentally sound practice. It's the way we believe many communities will be moving in the future. And so that is our request. Certainly where you have the islands and the trees, that area is going to have something planted there. That certainly would be a spot for it. And we recognize that not using lawn is a new process, a new look, and it may not be the right solution that this planning board's going to require for every project. But if you look at where this is located, it's not going to negatively impact any surrounding buildings in that area for its location in looking different. That's one of the concerns. It won't look the same standard of having a lawn. So I know it's a little bit at the tail end here, because I think last time we had quite a few discussions on it. We had months of discussing and working with the project proponent. But we had many recommendations of the types of plants they used, and they came up with a very good design. So that's our first comment. Our second one was that, and I think you did this in your plan, that the trees all be non-cultivar, straight species, although I've heard you're using an elm that, to make them work, they need to be some hybrid because of the disease resistance. So that would be probably acceptable, but as a not straight species native. And we had also looked at the conservation restriction. We recommended to support the prior position of planning board member, Mr. Luttrell, on abiding by that, and you're going to town council, so we support that, although you're getting a legal opinion, so I don't know how much that's worth, but we think there is an obligation. We weighed in on this the last time, and the obligation for the CR last time, from my notes, was not because of the size or the build-out of the project. It was because it was owed to the town, hadn't been done, and we think that still stands. But you're getting town council's opinion on that. And the last one is the Bay Circuit Trail runs besides this on the, I don't know if it's the DCR property exactly, or the, is it the Lamb Road that the Bay Circuit Trail's on, I think? It's not a clear path, right? But I had heard from, and I might have this wrong, I didn't have a long conversation. I checked in with the planner or the in Framingham to make sure, to see if they had a similar planting, you know, what their plans for natives were. And if, we certainly don't want a lawn that is half our look, not even half, but that little section, and then different in Framingham. So she was very interested in our approach and wanted us to send our letter, which I didn't have time to write between the meeting and now, and I'll get that to you. But she also mentioned that they had been looking at, or some comment had been made that there should be a sidewalk up Furman Street to connect to the Bay Circuit, which, as the Bay Circuit's in Southborough, I think that would be in front of the building on the Southborough side, and I don't see that on our plans, and I don't know if that was any consideration the planning board had thought about. But if you have people walking on a trail coming up and connecting up to the Staples area, it would, and I don't know if it would be a sidewalk to nowhere or what, but it just seems like it would be a start of keeping people out of the road and being potential roadkill. So,
Do you want to get a clarification on that? Sure.
So just a question to clarify the first comment on the native species for ground cover. Is the request for the areas that are being disturbed that are going to be pervious areas? Is that the request? Because the majority of the site is not being disturbed. So certainly we wouldn't want to disturb the site to change the species of the plantings out there. So in areas where we are changing it from impervious to pervious, or pervious areas are being disturbed, that's one thing to consider that. But to change the large lawn areas and off-graded areas out there would be a difficult task. So a lot of that area you can see on the plan that's up there. There's steep contours in those grass areas. So the front of the building has a 3-to-1 slope, and then obviously to the western side of the drive aisle and parking on the western side is also a steep area. And if it's again, it's a clarification we're looking for on that.
my question at the beginning was, are you landscaping it? Because if you're going in and disturbing the soil. But if you're not, and I don't know what your definition is, what I looked at, it said, on the Framingham side, it says landscaped open space. To me, that implied that you were going in and doing some landscaping.
No, that in those areas, that's a zoning compliance hatching that we're showing there to comply with zoning. We're not proposing to change the ground surface there. Only in the area where it says, along the eastern property line, we're taking out parking in Framingham and putting in loam and seed. So those areas we would be disturbing. Similarly, in Southborough, in the northwestern portion of the site, we're adding a landscape island and taking out pavement in that area, and we are putting some plantings in down by the building entry. That's the only place where we're really disturbing the ground cover outside of the existing pavement areas that aren't to remain pavement areas.
So I would, I believe our commission would not be requesting you to go in and replant areas you weren't already disturbing. That was not our intent. Just wherever there is any kind of disturbance of the soil or new soil, that be planted in a native ground cover grass. We can supply a list in our letter. We don't plan it for you, but we can suggest ideas, or you could look at the Northborough Road. You know, certainly plants that are suitable for the soil, the slope, and the sun or lack of. But some requirement in that any replacement material be native for the future would be, so that if there's an area you're not landscaping now, and in the future for some reason you go and you dig it up, that when you're replacing it, it be replaced with a native species. And I'll put this in a letter to the planning board that you'll get a copy of.
Do you need some time to think about that?
we'd like to see the letter, but if I could have a minute with my client about the timing and the scheduling, that would be great.
Mr. Mills?
Motion for a 2-minute recess.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? We'll see you in 2 minutes. Planning Board is back in session. We had a person at the podium here to speak, so we'll hear from Mr. Bartolini, and then we'll see what you all have to say. Lee?
Thank you. This is Leo Bartolini, as a former chairman of the zoning board. This project was in front of us, and we did approvals on it. And I would just like to recommend to the planning board that you let Mr. Town Council be aware of what we did on that also, because that'll affect you and think about what you're working on now.
Okay. Thank you. Counsel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Spoken to the client, and they are willing to grant the CR. We'd like to put that behind us. We'd like to get the hearing closed tonight. Subject to the issuance of the letter from the chairman of the Open Space Committee, that can come in. Otherwise, we close the hearing. And the other thing which we would like to make this part of the package would be, there was a reference to a sidewalk that was made by the chair of the Open Space Committee. We are totally opposed to the sidewalk. That just got laid out to us the other night in a draft decision from the Framingham Planning Board. We didn't know anything about it. We have not discussed it with them, but we intend to object to it. We do not want to pay to build a sidewalk along the entire length of Furman Avenue and Pleasant Street. So long as there's no sidewalk condition, so long as we can close, subject to the chairman of the Open Space Committee submitting her letter, we'd like to close the hearing, and we're amenable to the CR.
So, the town planner's got the one from 2014, where, you know, the big addition and all of that. And condition number 10, correct me if I'm not referring to the same thing, but I think I am. It says here, the applicant agrees to install a sidewalk segment on Furman Ave in Southborough along the site frontage connecting the traffic signal at Crossing Boulevard to the Bay Circuit Trail at the site driveway prior to the issuance of the occupancy permit. This includes approximately 300 feet of sidewalk, reuse of existing vertical granite curbing, ADA compliant ramps, and pavement markings / signs.
Right, so you're...
Is that the same thing we're
I'm
talking
sorry,
about?
so are you reading from the draft Framingham Planning Board decision?
No, this is the, this was the site plan approval.
In 2014 from this board?
Yes.
Right, and that was in connection with the 63,000 square foot addition.
And the parking across the street.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that says
But
what
is
it
that,
says.
is that the same sidewalk that
I
we're-
think so.
talking
I
about?
think so. It would be in front of the property, yes.
from the sidewalk, from the crosswalk?
From where you come across the Route 9
It-
all the way down.
It would have been the crosswalk to the across the street parking lot.
I'm not sure what you're saying. I think the easiest way to think of it is along the front of the property.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons they were also putting the sidewalk in, though, was so then, therefore, when you cross the street, you could walk along the frontage of the property, because the two properties were going to be connected. The parking for the subject property was going to exist on the other side of the street, so it made the need for a sidewalk much more relevant. The request, I think, that we're hearing tonight from the Open Space Committee is a sidewalk to service the trail, the Bay Circuit Trail. There is room in the right-of-way for a sidewalk, so certainly that is something that could be done by the towns if they so choose to provide it, but it's really not part of our project to put a sidewalk in along the frontage of the street, frontage of the property.
So, I was gonna ask you that, if the proposed sidewalk is still in the public right-of-way, then that condition would require the property owner to build a sidewalk on public land.
That's correct. I mean, yes, yep. There's room in the right of way for sidewalk.
Which happens all the time.
Yep.
Yeah. So what you're saying, or maybe you haven't said it yet, is that if someone else wanted to build a sidewalk and it was 100% in the public way, you wouldn't have anything to say about it.
That's exactly correct.
But if part of the sidewalk or all of the sidewalk were somehow on your property, the private property, all or in part, would you be open to have that someone else pay for and install the sidewalk?
We'd have to see what we were talking about.
Right, if it was cutting right through the middle of the field,
We need to see it.
yeah.
I really can't, that's really hard to answer that.
I mean, it's somewhat flat down by the street, and as you come up onto the site, that's where it starts to get steeper. So it wouldn't make much sense to locate it off of the public right-of-way onto the site, just based on the topography out there, but
We often see things that don't make much sense, so have to try to cover that. I'll open up to the board relative to the new information, which is this conservation restriction, not wanting to do the sidewalk. Did you say you're
closing-
open to and looking forward to complying with the Open Space Commission's recommendations?
With respect to areas that are going to be disturbed as part of the project, yes. For those that we are not planning to disturb, no.
Okay, I think we're all on the same page with that one, because that's what you said. So you are open to that,
Yes.
but you still need to see the letter in case,
I
The
think
native
I think
plants-
that's only fair.
sure. Right, and what type of options you'd be offered in the world of native plants. Mr. Mills?
So, first of all, with the conservation restriction, thank you, I think that's great. That was probably the biggest hurdle to get over. So appreciate that gesture. For the sidewalk, I mean, I think from, like Mr. Morris was reading before, it was a request specifically, or majority for the parking across the street and access and everything. I recognize, again, the sidewalk you're already putting in for the people who are parking. I think knowing that area and driving by it on a fairly regular basis, I haven't seen anyone randomly walking the trails. Not that people don't, but I think that the sidewalk you're putting in is going to be most beneficial to your patrons and for safety in general. I think where the chairman might have been saying is if there was some agreement that if, I don't know, if people walked across the grass in front because they were trying to stay out of the road, that you wouldn't come out and shoo them away or something like that, because they're following the trails, maybe, until maybe the town wanted to put a sidewalk in, I'd be comfortable with that aspect, but, especially without knowing is Framingham given any indication that they want a sidewalk?
Yes, they have.
They have. From what points?
Sorry?
From what point do they?
So my understanding, it would be on the north side of the Pleasant Street connector / Furman Avenue on our property, or, actually, I shouldn't say that. It's not clear to us exactly where they want it, but they're thinking of it at the front of our land. I don't know whether it's on our land or off our land. I don't think that they have looked at it that closely.
And the reason for it?
yeah, I mean, I think they're looking at it from Crossing Boulevard to Lambs Hill Road on the northern side of Pleasant Street connector, Furman Ave. They didn't specify right-of-way or on our property, but if you look at it, you can see there's probably a 10 to 15-foot strip there between the edge of pavement and the property line within the right-of-way.
Will look kind of funny if they make you put one in and it doesn't continue down. But I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't mandate it, from my point of view, on the Southborough side at this point.
Mrs. Luttrell.
So you probably can't answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So if you relent and put a sidewalk in for Framingham, would you object to continuing it through to Lambs Hill Road?
So we have every intention of objecting to it in Framingham.
Okay.
That is our position. We do not want to be involved with the sidewalk. Period. And we've gone back, I've talked to my client, we've made some phone calls, we're willing to give you the conservation restriction, and we would really like to end it there. We do not want to get involved in a sidewalk, because that's also going to trigger more permitting, and it's just not a place to go.
That's all.
Mr. Jenks.
I'm happy to end this with the CR, and good luck with the windows.
Does U-Haul rent sidewalks? No?
Maybe the Army
Hmm.
Corps of Engineers.
It's an idea.
Make some money. So, it seems like the planning board is grateful that the conservation restriction discussion is behind us, but, so if when Mr. Jenks asked you if you thought that the CR in the 1985 document runs with the land,
Right.
you were not sure.
Exactly.
So if town council comes back and says, yeah, it runs with the land, it's there, it's always there, it's been there since '85, would you agree with that as a way to formalize this? Or if he says, no, it's not,
Mhm.
so we have to draw up a new conservation restriction?
So there is no conservation restriction. The document doesn't exist.
Okay, you're right.
There's no such
Yes.
thing.
But the
So it would be-
requirement.
There would be a condition in this permit
Yes.
which would say, CR acceptable as to form by town council will be recorded.
Okay,
And I'm gonna
So
need
that would
some,
be more-
I'm gonna need some cooperation from the town for an organization who's gonna take it. Like the Conservation Commission. If
Yeah,
they don't
that-
take it, I can't give it.
sure. We've been in that situation before where we've had them and we've had to go shopping for someone that would,
So if
Take
we
it.
have verbiage in the condition which says that this is subject to there being a willing recipient of the CR, that would be acceptable language, that would make sense.
so this is work on both sides that takes a little bit of time. So would it make sense for, similar to what we did at the golf course, where after the vote was taken, there was a commitment to have a conservation restriction placed on the 60-something acres of the golf course? The project moved forward without that CR completed, and but the town worked on it and was able to complete it within a couple of months.
The CR.
Yes.
Yeah, that should be doable.
So that would be another thing that we would probably put in there, that it would,
A timing provision, yeah, for recording. Sure.
yeah,
Yes,
so that you don't just slow roll it and it never happens.
understood.
So I think with that, with the golf course, we made the condition that the CR was placed in front of the state before an occupancy permit could be granted. Now, we said just put in front of the state, because at that point, you don't have any control over whether it gets approved or not.
Right.
But that's what we said.
So we'll try to use that as a model.
Yeah, let's see the language. We'll work the language out.
Right. So it's not,
But I understand the principle, is you want to get it recorded.
So the occupancy permit, if this gets approved tonight, 20-day appeal period, you're in Framingham next week, let's say they approve it, 20-day appeal period. Let's say by the end of March, you're good to go. How far beyond that would you be open for business? There's no wrong answer, I'm just, maybe if that date is far enough out, we could use that, we could use the occupancy permit. But if you want to occupy in a shorter period of time than it would take us to do the language and get it all tightened up, I don't think it would be fair to hold up your occupancy.
I understand what you're saying.
Don't connect it to the, okay.
so could we connect it to, I won't even joke with it.
Well, we could do 6 months.
If it's going to happen, it should happen in 6 months.
Right. If you want to go 3 months, but we have people on our side too that we don't want to commit their time.
Right, and we just heard about town council and the town meeting, and, it's going to take some time.
Maybe 9 months? Any opinions on that, Freddie?
We're working on several right now with different departments in town, and I can say it's never as simple as you think it's going to be, maybe. It has to go to the state, comes back. So recording is different than being in front of the state on the secretary's desk, which is what I think your occupancy permit was for the public safety. But there was another one which was a requirement for the CR from town meeting. So you don't want to just say on somebody's desk, because eventually you want to be sure it doesn't just get there and then you don't have to go any further, because it gets on his desk and then comes back and goes back and forth a few times. So I think you have two, you want to be sure it gets recorded in some period of time, but 6 months is way too fast, I think, because you have no control over how fast EEA is going to look at it. But 6 months to be on his desk, they now have a simple model boilerplate, and this is not a complicated one. There's not a lot of, there's no golf course there, no public the trail doesn't go through it, right? So there's no public access, so I would imagine it's pretty simple. So I think you have two components. On his desk, and then...
Let me suggest this, that in order to get you comfortable that this is going to happen, that we have the 2 deadlines as suggested. One would be that the applicant would work with town council to get the proposed CR to the state, within 6 months of the date of this decision, your decision. And then the second deadline would be that the CR would be recorded within 90 days of securing all the necessary approvals for the CR, because it's the state, and I think it's also the Board of Selectmen and/or the Conservation Commission, so we're gonna need time, once the state signs off on the language, to get all the approvals for the CR. So I suggest those two deadlines, 6 months to get it into the state, and then another 3 months after that for recording.
6 months after the appeal period.
Sure, yes.
I don't want to drag this out, but just getting it to the state, they can take their time getting it back to you, and then our town council might take time reviewing that and getting it back to the state. It can go back and forth just because of, you know, the i's and t's that need to be dotted and crossed. So I would not want you to be in jeopardy of having to get something you can't do. So you said 90 days after you're all the,
Right. I'm suggesting that there be a second deadline, as you did, which would be, we're not putting in a time frame on securing the approvals. Instead, we're saying it takes whatever time it takes, but that 3 months from securing all of the approvals, that we would have to record the CR.
so that would imply the EEA's approval too, not just the town ones? Okay.
What federal, state or local approvals that are necessary would have to be obtained.
Okay.
Just need a few minutes here. The town planner is putting some stuff together, and I have a note going down the table to see who's available to meet next week. You're going to be in Framingham what day?
The 21st.
Thursday?
The 21st is Thursday, I think.
But we could do it with 3. Special permit, right? This isn't, what's that? This isn't our first site plan, so,
This is first site plan.
no, this planning board, we've been through a few site plans before this one. And, not for this site, but for similar situations where we feel that we should close and work on the conditions while we sit here without you having looked at them. And it seems to be not the way to go. So, next week is a Monday holiday, but three of the 4 here are able to meet next week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. So we would continue the hearing to Tuesday or Wednesday, give you an opportunity to look at these draft conditions, give us an opportunity to cross-check with Framingham in case there's something that hasn't come up, that you haven't brought up here tonight, that may still be on the table with them. I think you got the feeling from the board relative to the sidewalk that we don't expect you to do that, even if Framingham makes you do it. So it's not, the purpose of huddling with Framingham isn't focused on the sidewalk. It's just the way we do business. Anytime there's a site between the two towns, and we haven't huddled with Framingham yet. My big concern is these conditions, And how many do we have right now?
We have approximately 10, 11.
So, can I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman? I've seen boards that have closed the public hearing for public comment, but we can leave the session open. We're going to come back to you, I think, on the 25th, or we can come back next week if you want, for the purpose of discussing the conditions. I don't see anything wrong with that. That can be open for discussion. It's just that we don't want new information coming in.
No, I wouldn't go along with that because there's been recent situations where, not this board, but perhaps other boards have closed the public hearing and then discussed the conditions. And then if the conditions that the public has not seen yet, if there's an issue with any one or all of them, the public can't comment.
That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that the hearing be closed.
And I'm saying that if the hearing is closed,
Yes.
then the public doesn't have an opportunity to comment on the matters before us. The board and the public hasn't even seen these conditions yet. And the public is entitled to comment on the conditions.
I agree with everything you just said. All I'm suggesting is that we close the substantive portion of the public hearing, but leave the public hearing open with respect to the discussion of the conditions. That's all.
I don't think we've ever done that. Public hearing's either open or it's closed. Public hearing is for comments relative to the project. I don't think we've ever done that. I don't mean to be difficult, but I'm just speaking from experience and regrets in doing it anything other than what we're proposing. And if there's 3 members here that are willing to give up another night, come in here for another meeting
Which night would that be?
to accommodate, then I think we'd wind up with a much better product, not just for us, but for you.
So that would be on the 19th?
Hold on a second. Is there a way that you can find out the availability of the rooms?
Yes, I can just run downstairs if the door's
Okay,
It may be locked. I can look at let me look.
okay,
The 19th and the 20th?
yeah,
If it's locked, I won't know till tomorrow.
okay, yeah.
Let me go.
Town planner's gonna go downstairs to see if she can get in and find out what rooms are available. We have to continue the hearing to a time and place.
Right.
So if this room isn't available, we'd have another place.
My engineer just informed me that he's not available on the 19th, so the 20th would be better.
That's the Wednesday?
Wednesday.
It looks like the only thing posted is Woodward Elementary School council agenda. And I don't think they take the room for that, do they?
No, they always meet at the school. It's
Yeah.
3:30 anyways.
So, they have a posted meeting.
Must not be attended by the kids.
No, I'm sorry, the door's locked, so I can't tell.
Andrew just looked it up on his phone, and
I did.
do you-
What do you
Woodward
see?
is the only meeting on the 20th.
But they only have to post 48 hours in advance, so just because there's nothing there yet doesn't mean
Yeah.
there won't be.
It could be, but sometimes they don't post until right when they have to, so they don't have to repost if there's a change.
yeah.
Otherwise, we can just go to the next.
Well, you know what? The senior center has, even if that can be divided, there can be more than one meeting at the senior center, right? At the same time?
You can meet in the kitchen, you can meet in one of the rooms.
So we'll just take a chance. I mean, if it's not too bad, we could meet in the parking lot, but bring some chairs out there, but we'll do the 20th then, if that works.
Yes.
We'll try to, so the idea would be to continue the public hearing to 7 PM,
It would have to be 7:30, I have to work.
7:30 PM on February,
Wednesday.
Yeah. No, because there'll be time to get that resolved, get those scrubbed. 7:30 on the 20th would be the continuation of the public hearing. But we can't continue the public hearing until we extend the approval period. So and then the following Monday, we meet. Is that right?
Correct.
So I would suggest continuing extending the approval period to the following Tuesday or Wednesday. And the reason is, if we have a big snowstorm next Wednesday, we'd have to probably push it to the following Monday, but would still be within the approval period.
But is the intent to get a signed decision on the 20th, barring a snowstorm? Is that the idea here?
Right, I mean, we're not adding another meeting just to have
Right.
us all get together, no.
So you're giving yourself some extra time on a decision in case we have a snowstorm on the 20th?
We always do that in the winter.
Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what
Okay,
what
that's
what
fair
we're-
enough. I
what
just
we're
want to
doing.
make sure we're on the same wavelength, that
no.
we're trying to finish this on the 20th.
You know, this is the same reason why we've made the end on the 15th for this week,
Okay,
was in case there was a snowstorm, that we'd have the week to.
okay, so the approval period gets bumped out to the 27th.
What day is that?
It's a Wednesday.
Okay. It's my understanding that if we continue the public hearing to next Wednesday and there's a snowstorm, that the hearing is able to be continued to the next convenient date. You agree with that, Counsel?
Yes.
Yeah. Although this board has a long history of meeting regardless of what the weather is.
Looking for that motion now.
So, yeah, with the understanding that between now and Wednesday, town planner will send you a list of the draft, the
Decision,
decision document with the draft conditions.
right, and we'll turn it right back around.
And consistent with her homework in doing this will be to check, as Mr. Bartolini said, on any actions by other boards, which would be the ZBA, or you indicated Conservation Commission, you're all set with them.
We have an approval from them, it's recorded.
Okay. That's the type of stuff that we do. And if
That's
anything,
the only other permit.
and
Your waiver of the lid.
who would Karina send this stuff to?
Me.
Okay.
And do you want Aldo to review the decisions? Because that won't happen in this timeframe.
Yeah, and then if you're comfortable and we're comfortable with the draft decision document with the conditions, then we would, actually prior to that, but we wouldn't expect town council to give us his blessing before Wednesday, but we would, and we do this consistently, I guess, is if we don't get the final approval from town council on the decision document, we would agree that that would be amenable to some minor changes if council wanted to change some words, but it would be mutual.
If he wants to change the words before the 20th.
No, even afterwards. Because the decision document, the notice of decision, we would vote on that, but it doesn't go into effect until the chairman signs it and it gets submitted to the town clerk. And that starts the 20-day appeal period.
So I've never been confronted with a situation where the board votes on a decision and then the town council gets to change it. I don't see that.
It's only if we all agree to it. We've had situations where we use, we might use a word that's okay, and he may recommend a more appropriate and legal term.
Right, if you're talking about approving it as to form, that's one thing,
Yeah.
not the substance.
No,
Okay, that's
Agree.
fine.
agree. Yeah, we've had that happen, and both sides say, fine, it's a better word.
As long as it's as to form, not substance.
Okay. Mr. Mills,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we extend the approval period for major site plan approval for 0 Furman Ave to February 27th, 2019.
Second?
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? There's a form that we use that you'll have to sign. She has to go in and
Just quickly fix it.
and fix it. Any more discussion? All in favor? Okay, we've extended the approval period. Mr. Mills,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 0 Furman Ave major site plan approval to February 20th at 7:30 PM. Location to be determined in Southborough.
I don't think the town clerk will go with that. Let's make it
Well-
the senior center.
At the, at the senior center.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want
So-
recess?
If you wait one moment, I'll quickly redraft.
Mr. Mills,
Motion for a 2-minute recess.
Second?
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 2 minutes. Planning Board is back in session. In the 2-minute break, the town planner modified the draft of the request for continuation / extension of a public hearing, and changing the dates to what we just agreed to and voted on, which is the February 20th to continue the public hearing, and then the approval period to February 27th. Council just signed it, and I'm signing it now.
You want to put up the one board?
The 3D rendering?
So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, 10 Turnpike Road, major site plan approval, and another public hearing, 10 Turnpike Road, lower impact development.
The general site.
I'll ask the town planner to read the public hearing notice.
All right, hi. This is the public hearing notice for major site plan approval and special permit for lower impact development, 10 Turnpike Road, Assessors Map 39, Lot 56. Per Section 174-10 of the Southborough zoning code, the planning board of the town of Southborough shall hold a public hearing on Monday, February 11th, 2019, in the Thomas J. McAuliffe Hearing Room, second floor townhouse, to consider the application of REIM Corporation for major site plan approval at 7:20 p.m. Per Section 174-13.3 of the Southborough zoning code, the planning board of the town of Southborough shall hold a public hearing on Monday, February 11th, 2019, at the Thomas J. McAuliffe Hearing Room, second floor townhouse, to consider the application of REIM Corporation for lower impact development special permit at 7:25 p.m. The hearing concerns the redevelopment and expansion of the existing building for mini storage facility located in the Highway Business District at 10 Turnpike Road, Assessors Map 39, Lot 56. Copy of the plans and applications can be viewed at the planning office at the Southborough Townhouse during normal business hours. Any person wishing to be heard on the proposed plan should appear at the time and place designated. Please note that this public hearing, originally scheduled for January 28th, 2019, has been changed to February 11th, 2019. Donald C. Morris, Chair, Planning Board.
Thank you. Want to give us a background on this one, Karina?
All right, December 10th of 2018, we received an application for minor site plan approval and an application for special permit for lower impact development from the applicant, is REIM Corporation. The owner is Raj Mehorta. And
Who's
he's
here?
here. There he
Who's
is.
he?
I couldn't see. There you are. The engineer is James DeValis with DeValis Zreen. That's right. Unusual name. Also here representing the applicant is attorney Peter Barberi with Fletcher and Tilton. They're proposing a 3-story storage facility, all-American self-storage at 10 Turnpike Road. A butter notification was sent out by the applicant. We originally published the legal ad on the incorrect day, so the planning department republished it on the correct days, which brought us to this hearing time tonight. We received certified return receipts from most of the abutters, and we also have some town department comments from the fire department and the building department. And Fuss and O'Neill was provided a copy of the applications. They also provided review comments January 23rd, which were submitted to the applicant team for review, which brings us to this meeting tonight. And this is the first public hearing opening for that. We received a comment letter from the fire department dated January 7th, with standard review comments, which were also provided to the applicant team. The applicant went before the Zoning Board of Appeals in July of last year, I believe, to get a special permit for over 50,000 square feet for building. Were there any variances? I don't believe so.
No.
You didn't ask, it was just the building size, square
Building
footage.
size.
And that's what I have.
Very good, thank you. Welcome, council, welcome back.
It's been a while.
Yeah. You're on.
Thank you. With us this evening is also Christine Walsh, who's the architect.
Hi.
Brief overview. The site we're talking about is a 6-acre site, more or less, probably half a mile from the Framingham town line on the eastbound side. There's an existing rectangular building of about 42,000 square feet. That's the block kind of on the I guess, middle of the site. This plan depicts what we're proposing to do on it, and I'm going to give a kind of a brief overview, and then Jim will give you the details of the changes that have taken place and how it operates, and Christine can go through the architecture and all that type of stuff. But the site right now, as I said, is a building about 42,000 square feet, built in the 1960s. Setback, there's a septic system in front of the existing building, which is set back. There's a very narrow drive that come into the site. If you've been out to the site, you've seen a lot of large trucks and tractor trailers that are parked in the back. The gray area that you see on that plan, looking to the right of the existing building, that's all existing, as well as the gray around the back of the building. What happens in the front of the building is basically the driveway in a little bit of a parking area. The proposal was discussed with the building official last April. As was stated, we were directed, because of the size of the expansion, what's taking place within the building, directed to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit. There's 3 changes that are taking place at the building. That's probably a better picture. Down on the lower right-hand side, you can see the expansion that's taking place there, roughly a 7,100 square foot footprint. The big expansion is in the front, and that goes out, and it still meets the setback from the street. And then interior to the existing building is where we're adding a mezzanine space, because there was no manufacturing buildings, you get very high ceilings. So the net result, as we explained to the Zoning Board of Appeals and got that approval, is going from from 42,000 to 123,000 square feet for the storage facility. All the additions and the expansions comply in all respects with setbacks and floor area ratios and all those type of things. As you can see, we're really only using the developed portion of the site, which is probably about the first 40%, closest to Route 9. The rest of it is a wooded area. The white area that you see on that plan in white, that's an existing approved antenna. Nothing is happening in that regard. That was approved way back by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So there's no activity taking place with that. There's no wetlands on the site. We did meet with the Conservation Commission because we also need a special permit from them from viewpoint of stormwater management. We have received correspondence from the town's consultant, both on the stormwater management as well as on the major site plan and the special permit for the LID. We have not, didn't have time and didn't feel it appropriate to try to revise the plans and resubmit them, rushing this board and them because we were coming to the hearing. The hope is that we can get everybody's comments and do kind of one, encompassing change of all the aspects. There's really nothing on that we saw as a specific problem. There was a notation from the viewpoint of signage where we need relief based upon the location and size of the sign, and we're defining that all out, and that'll be part of the response to your consultant, as well as all the issues from viewpoint of drainage and everything else. So that's the general overview. All the development expansions and all those things comply with everything. There's 25 parking spaces in total. We're anticipating 2 or 3 employees generally on the site for the use of the property, so the parking spaces will more than cover what the need will be. Jim, you want to kind of go through changes and details? And
Okay, thank you. For the record, again, it's, my name is Jim
Yeah,
DeVellis.
You can take that off,
Oh,
yeah.
perfect. Thanks.
Squeeze the bottom.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Jim DeVellis. I'm a professional civil engineer with DeVellis Serene, and we're providing my client with civil engineer and landscape architecture services. What we submitted is a full set of site plans with layout materials, grading, drainage, utilities, lighting, and then full architectural. I'll start off briefly. This is just a colored rendering of bird's eye view. As Peter had said, this is the site. It's about 6 acres. The back 3 acres being untouched, so we're working in this area. This is Route 9. So it's just as you go past the site on Route 9 going east, north is up, you take the connector road off. So this is, as you get to this point, this area right here is, I think is it Boston Edison, the overhead lines, that's there. So that's the abutter there. And the only thing that really comes through the site that we didn't talk about, as you come off Route 9, there's an access point here to get up to, through the Edison, and then come back into here. Again, not touched, but those are the really areas around the site. So as Peter had said, this rectangular building is there now, and for redevelopment, we looked at all different concepts, and we really tried to save what was there and not have to go back with expansion. So we were completely renovating this building, putting a small bump out here, and then as Route 9 is lower, as you come up here, we work very well with the grades. As you come off, you have an area to go under. So what happens is, as you come off the Route 9 area in the general location of the existing drive, you're going to come up and you're going to park in this area, the front parking area, and the office is here. Vehicles can go up and then actually go through the building. It's a fully climate-controlled building, so there'll be a keypad, the doors open, you drive into the building, there's elevators, and then when you finish, you drive back out of the building and exit this way. Or you can come up here and go in and then come back out and go this way, or come up, and as Peter had said, this gray area is existing parking. We're actually making it smaller. We're pulling it away from the property lines and then just striping on the outside, so you'd be able to come in back out, back into here, then come back out, or back into here and then come back out. So we really tried to utilize the existing site where we're pulling it closer, we're keeping the same grades. I'm going to go very briefly just through some of the layout and grading plans to just generally show you what's happening on the site. So this is the site plan that was submitted. And from an existing condition perspective, the front 3 acres is shown on the survey, so we kind of blew it up. You see this is the existing rectangular building, all paved in the front. There's an existing septic system here, and then the rest is just all paved. This dark hatched area that you show is the grades come up and then they abruptly goes up because there's significant ledge in the back of the site over in that area. The first design set of drawings that we get into is the sediment and erosion control plan. Again, the pavement stays where it is, and we just ring it with silt fence and keep the controls in the site, and then there's a construction entrance there. And we start to show some of the proposed stuff over the existing. Again, the front 3 exit entrances will show the drives, dimension at 24-foot drive aisles, 9.5 by 18 spaces, limits of pavement. That's the entrance that to the towers that go around the back. And again, the front bump out and the side storage bump out. On the grading and drainage, again, grades stay pretty much the same. We're not really increasing the amount of impervious. We are a little bit, but what we're finding out is there's actually no process for the water to get off the site other than it just sheet flows off right now. So what we've done is we're collecting the roofs, we're putting it into an on-site stormwater basin, mitigation basin. It fills up during the storm events, infiltrates into the ground. We did test pits over here, and it perks nice. The soil, they call it eudorthants. It's completely previously developed. But when we did the test pits, decent perk rate in here. So we're bringing everything down into the basin and then out in that direction. This here is a on-site septic system. As Peter had said, there's only 2 employees maybe, so it's designed for 220 gallons a day. So it's a very modest system. We did perks here, and they perked very well. The existing septic system is over here. Thank you. As far as landscaping plan, from the edge of the pavement back, it's going to be remaining woods, so we're not taking out to put landscaping in, we're just maintaining it. We've got foundation plantings around here, street trees along here and around the basin, and then we've actually pulled this back and pulled this back, so there's a landscape strip there and fully landscaped on the perimeter. And I think on that side there's I forget the name of it, but it's a automotive service building right there. And the last real site plan is we did a photometrics. What we did is small wall packs around the building and then poles around the perimeter, 20-foot poles, LED lighting, average foot candles well below. I think it's about 1.5-foot candles just in the parking area. And pretty much doesn't spill. A couple areas a little bit over the side, but we'll adjust it. So again, it's LEDs right down, 20-foot poles spaced out around as you see here. And then the rest is like the septic system. So as Peter said, we're already in front of the conservation. We've had meeting number 1, very well received. We got the engineering comments. We're in the process of reviewing those and responding. Nothing significant that's going to change the building or the layout. We might tweak it as you go around the building, but I think we're in good shape on the comments that we received so far.
And as Jim said, it's a climate control building. It'll be all fully sprinkled and everything else for fire protection.
You want to talk a little bit about the architecture?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Christine Walsh from Menino Incorporated. I'm just going to jump right to the rendering because that's pretty much what people like to see. We kept the the landscaping's pretty simple, so you can actually see the building on this rendering. But basically, it's a 3-story building. Masonry at the bottom. We're looking at possibly a metal panel or an EFIS system up top. But this is generally the systems and the color schemes that we're looking at. They have the general office when you go in to either, find your space and, rent a space, is right at the beginning. As soon as you come onto the site, the office is right at that corner. That I'm going to call it the tower element. And it's all glass, and we call it like a little peek window, and you can see what the storage facility looks like on the inside through the glass. This is the drive-through aisle. You come up, it's one way in the building. Of course, the driveway is 2-way, but you come in, you go in. There are 2 elevators. You basically go in, you unload, remove your car, and just kind of like a little drive-through. And then the existing portion back here is 2 stories. There's an existing, I'm going to call it like a little loading area or unloading area. Where you could just back in and unload some items there, and then you can remove your car. This area back here are actually storage units that have exterior doors. Directly, so if you rent those particular ones, you have direct exterior access instead of from inside the building. As also these few units down front, those are direct access from outside. But the whole building's climate controlled, as they said. It's fully sprinklered. I'm not sure if you have any specific questions. We're using,
The photographs behind are of the existing building, so you can see the significant
wanna see
change
the
in
difference.
investment in the architecture we're putting into it.
these are some existing condition photos of the building that's there now. As you can see, there'll be a great improvement in how it looks on the site.
Okay.
But these are the existing bays that would stay. We're not, obviously would replace doors and clean them up, but that's already there. And this is that back area they were talking about behind the building with this ledge. And then I also have exterior elevations, but it basically shows what was in the rendering. We do have some plans, the preliminary plans. This actually shows the drive-through. So, if you come into the site, then you come up the slope, and then you'd go in, and you can see, the cars are there. You have an elevator here. You basically unload and just keep on going around. Or if you'd like, your other option, if you don't need to go in this part of the building, you could, there's some car unloading here. These are much lower to the ground than these existing loading bays. But, you could just come in, you back in, unload, and you can turn around and then just go back out. The hatched areas of the building circulation, the darker areas, these existing restrooms.
You want to put up the other sign that just shows the locations of the signage? And one of the points made by your consultant is that you'll see the sign on the white band. The bylaw says it can't be more than 20 feet from the grade. That is, so we've got to look at that again or seek the appropriate approval for it. That's the best location for it, given what is happening within the building.
Right, this is our typical signage band that we usually put up. And it is over the 20 feet. I believe it's 38 to the top of the letters at the moment. And this stays within the allowable square footage for the building signage, the wall signage. We're also looking for a leaf to add another smaller climate-controlled sign.
It's climate control is the
Yeah.
language, I think.
That's set back, that's on the existing.
So, generally, that's it. The utility service come onto Route 9, no big deal, given the small volumes that we're doing anything with.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I'll open it up to questions, comments from the board. Mr. Mills?
Thank you. Great job. I am familiar with the site as we approved the
automotive
the
next to it.
automotive place recently. I think it was a little over a year ago because they were before us a couple months ago about the lighting that was, we had them tone it down a
Turn it
little bit.
down.
So FYI on that one. As it was very distracting when we came through it. And they admitted too that it was rather bright to begin with. So, like I said, I am familiar with the site. So a couple of things. One thing that jumped out immediately, I think you used the word wall pack for lights. That seems to be a lightning rod with this board. Is that fair to say, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, you just have to look in the code, and there's a sentence in there that specifically states that wall packs are prohibited.
So,
Take them off your building.
We also have,
I know this is the
Decorative,
first
yeah.
meeting, just
Mhm.
wanna,
So are you saying wall packs are not allowed at all, or? So with the alternative, it would be a pole outside?
I think they're looking for the wording, but it's
Yeah.
It's specific.
It was,
The wall
I thought it was
packs are-
allowed, but there was some limit on the size or intensity or something.
We'll get, I'll look for the sentence.
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
So then, the lighting in general, because I know the building before was set back, and I think when the automotive place came, before us, they didn't even know if the building was being used. So,
Yep.
so not that that's a bad thing, but it's just, so I know there's not a lot of traffic going in and
Mhm,
out
mhm.
currently. But, so it is a lot more exposed now, I think, with the lighting. The one thing for another applicant that was here prior, we talked a lot about the lighting too, along, for that too, just how the internal, not tonight, but in the past, how if it's internally lit and everything, you know, it's a piece that we'd want to see that at night it's toned down, so it's not lit up like,
Yeah, I think the hours of operation, we were talking about basically from 6 AM to 10. So at
7
10,
p.m.,
everything gets kind of shut down internally and all that type of stuff.
yeah. So, just bringing up some major things that we've gone through with other pieces. So the wall packs, the lightings, and I believe there's still, how do I word this? I know there were some drainage concerns with your neighbor, and I think I heard that there were some issues even with some big storms that happened with the water running off for that ramp.
Back down.
Specifically, further to the east,
Mm-hmm.
but talking specifically about the drainage concerns, so, and I know that there were a lot of comments from, or.
Yeah, a question from the viewpoint of that swell behind the property that extends and then goes out to Route 9. That had come up at the Conservation Commission hearing, so we're preparing a response to that. We're certainly not adding any impervious coverage over there to add any of that, and I think
We try to make
improving it a
better,
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any improvement you can do to make sure that there isn't water pointed towards the neighbor, which I
Mhm.
know you wouldn't
Mhm.
do anyway, but, and then also just, you know, I want to look or hear more later, either tonight or another time, about that retention basin in front, how we're sure it's not going to overflow because it's so close to Route 9 and then create any hazard. And then the only other thing that I'm sure someone else might bring up later tonight, or if you heard from the prior meeting, since you will be doing a lot of disturbance to the ground for new native plants, what we've been advised by the Open Space Committee from prior projects, looking for things that are much more native, require less watering, ongoing, less mowing, things like that, attract the appropriate insects that we want, i.e. bees or things like that, to pollinate. But they would have, probably the best thing would be to touch base with the open space and say, hey, what would be the most, how can we partner going forward instead of trying to hash it all out tonight? So those are my first observations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The code 174-12.1, section D, section F, talks about wall-mounted fixtures.
Mhm.
The last sentence is 5 words. Wall pack lighting fixtures are prohibited. So, we've had commercial and industrial sites where they'll mount the light off the building and shine the light onto the building. Or they'll have a wall-mounted fixture or a soffit-mounted fixture that directs the light downward, but you can't see the light source. If you're familiar with the wall packs, all you see is the light source. There's a better way to do it.
Sure.
And especially with the neighborhood behind you, we would be very sensitive to points of light.
Yeah, I'm sure once we look at that, we would not be asking for a variance to change it. We'll adjust it to meet the code.
Mrs. Luttrell?
Good evening. The planting plan, it doesn't have any quantities listed on it, and it doesn't reference, like, what's what on the plan. Like, it doesn't say what's planted where.
Okay, I think there is, well, the symbols that you see have, just pull it up for a second. Okay, so yeah, so it's broken up. If you look at the planting legend, it's deciduous or evergreen or ornamental or shrubs. And then per the plan, you can count them, but,
We'll put numbers on that.
yeah. Oh, I see, on the quantity on the table is missing.
Yeah.
We'll add that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they're all shown. We'll just put the numbers on the
And like,
legend.
what's planted where?
Okay, so.
So,
for
like,
showing,
what's
just
the-
Call it out as a,
Mhm.
Put the labels.
yeah, as a sugar maple or a honey locust, okay.
Yeah. And also the perennials in the ground cover are non-natives.
The ones that are listed here are non-natives?
Yeah, and the vinca, I think, is almost an invasive.
Okay, I'll check, my landscape architect's not with us tonight, but I'll make her aware of that.
Okay. And what lid techniques are being utilized?
So, let's pull it up, it's been a while. So, did this booklet that was submitted has all the write-ups, right?
Yeah.
So-
So I'm looking for vegetated open channel systems, rain gardens, buffer strips, roof gardens if applicable,
Yeah.
bioretention basins.
Okay, so on the big picture, on the low-impact development, I think we wrote up that we are, big picture, keeping away from the 3 acres, so leaving 3 acres that is not developed now, we're not gonna develop it. Then we looked at taking the building and reusing it rather than demolishing it and building it new. As we get into the site, we're pulling back. If you look at the pavement, it goes right up to the property line on one side, and then the back side, it goes further. So we're pulling back the pavement as much as we can and providing additional landscaping. The, behind the building and along the side, all the way down to that problematic area, we say it's going down to the neighbors. We're taking a kind of dilapidated swale, if you will, that's just non-functioning, pulling that out, excavating, putting crushed stone with the perforated pipe, so that whole back side is gonna be on a infiltration channel. And then we're providing a stormwater basin in the front, which is open air, not underground, to provide that habitat on the top, but infiltration and vegetation around the sides.
Okay, so none of the specific techniques, though, like no rain gardens? Is the-
No, we're not doing the rain gardens where it's a redevelopment. We're taking it and redeveloping it in a better way, but we did not put in the rain gardens.
Because our bylaw says that techniques integrated into every aspect of the site design to create a hydraulically functional water site, and including all of those.
Yeah, the biggest improvement on that right now is, as we said, all the drainage now, at least from the front portion of the site in front of the building, just sheet flows out onto 9. So we're collecting all that, putting in the basin, which is a recharge chamber, to satisfy that and improve the whole drainage and LID system.
Right, but I'm looking for the particular techniques that are called out in our bylaw that are required, unless there's a reason that there's a request for a waiver from them. I'll leave that alone for now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but we looked at it from a broad, we're making it a lot better, we're pulling it back, we're cleaning up the stormwater, we're putting a detention basin, we're putting in the infiltration swales. Could we do more if we want to add a rain garden around the detention basin? I think we're there. I think we've done on a redevelopment more than what's under the practicable stormwater regulations. And then looking at the low-impact development, I don't think you can get much more low impact than leaving 3 acres open and pulling back what's there, and it's still putting in more additional square footage that's not there now for the building. But I'm not arguing with you. We'll go back and look at if we can do something
Okay.
better on that.
Since you brought up the 3 acres, so that's not going to be developed and it's going to be left in its natural state?
Yeah, we went through a series of concepts on what we could do there to get the same square footage and going out to the back. And we decided on this, it fits the program. Right now, there's no plans to make it larger. So we left that 3 acres alone. Not to say if someone comes back 10 years from now or wants to expand, but that's something that we haven't discussed, or it's not in this plan.
Well, so this lid special permit's being granted based on the fact that that one of the reasons that you have stated to grant it is that 3 acres is being left in its natural state. So I'd like to see it noted on the plans that it's going to be left as open space and not to be disturbed.
In perpetuity?
Well,
Yeah.
any further approval would have to come back and get whatever modification and do whatever you would require at that point in time.
Right. But the way I see it is that you're looking for a lid approval based on that condition, that half the 3 acres of the site is left undisturbed. So we're not going to take it away after we grant it
Yeah,
if
I
you
mean,
disturb it, so it should be left undisturbed.
Maybe if I spoke that was
What we'll do is we'll
Well,
take
it's
those-
written
we'll
in
take that
here,
criteria
too.
and write you up a memo to address all the items for your next meeting.
And there was a question about the access road in the back by the fire department. Is that going to be utilized by?
right now, you can get, I'll show you the picture on the back.
Don't forget your microphone.
So if you go to the rear of the building, this is what's there now. So what we're doing is we're pulling it back. I think we've got 18 feet of pavement proposed, and then it goes down as you get further into down to 12. It's not for any customers. It's not for anyone else to come back there, but we just pulled it back. What the fire department said is I think they had a minimum width
20 feet or
of
something.
20 feet.
But we're preparing
Yeah.
a response to the fire
Yeah, so
department.
we'll respond to them. I don't think the fire truck is going to pull right along in there, and that's what we're going to talk to them about, because for a fire truck to come that close to a building and then do what, put their ladder, it just doesn't seem like that's what they're going to do, but we'll meet with them, and we'll make it as wide as what they require. And again, we're not going to ask for a variance or anything that the fire department is not going to allow.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Mr. Jenks?
Good evening. How many storage units do you have here?
I don't think we've actually done a full tally because these are preliminary plans. And we do a quick layout in terms of, for circulation patterns and just to show, how the building could possibly work. Once we know we're gonna actually go through with the project, we work with Raj's storage unit. They have a consultant that actually does a certain unit mix, different sizes, and we work directly, with them. So the actual preliminary plans might change a little bit in terms of sizes, but the actual circulation will probably remain very similar. So I don't have an exact number yet. I don't know if Raj has counted the units yet.
It should be between 700 to 800 units.
And how big is the largest?
Largest, normally it's 10 by 30,
Mm-hmm.
and but inside the building, their sizes are normally, maybe could be 3 or 4 units, 10 by 30, or most of them will be between less and more like 10 by 20s and small. Smallest unit in self-storage about 5 by 5, 5 feet by 5 feet, and the 10 by 30 is the largest. We normally put in self-storage, but when it's inside self-storage, the sizes not 10 by 30s are very minimal. It's
Okay.
more like 10 by 20s is the largest.
Thank you. You talk about inside and outside?
So this is all except for 5 units or maybe 8 units. Everything else is inside.
Where are the outside units?
It's next to the office.
I think the rendering actually shows all of them.
So 5
Outside in the
units.
sense that they open to the outside,
Outside wall.
not outside storage as a separate
Okay.
setup.
That's what I was
yeah,
afraid of.
Maybe a few here,
Okay,
but so there are 5 units here and maybe 5 units here.
okay, thank you.
Everybody else enters kind of through the building.
Right. So, looking at the roadway in, what is the width of the driveway coming in off of Route 9?
Is it
To
20?
24 feet.
And that's entrance and exit
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
striped?
Right.
Not this. Maybe
So
the
if you
first one, maybe.
come straight in from Route 9,
This
beside the building, you can turn to the right and go into the building.
You can see as you come in there, that little shaded area,
Right.
right there.
So yes, it is a right.
So, the way you have it shown there, you show a car in each, or a vehicle in each side of the driveway. How does somebody get through or by there if those are parked? If they're unloading?
Oh,
They're
you're
not designated
Parking
aisles.
on one side, aisle on the
talking
other,
about
one way.
You're talking about here?
Yes,
This is 30 feet wide,
okay.
and you can have, so you park on this, there's enough space for another car to get by it.
What's the height in there?
14 feet.
So you can have a truck
That's-
in there? Well,
No,
what's
no.
the height of the overhead door, I guess?
So,
What's-
this is one way.
Yeah.
You enter from here, exit from this side,
Okay,
and there's enough parking, so enough parking for people to park here or here. And we'll do some control of which side, maybe you can control only one side you can park, so another car can get by it.
so
30
if you're
feet.
only parking on one side, people are unloading, they're crossing the through lane
Mhm.
with, what, dollies, trailers, carrying
Carts, yeah.
things over their shoulder, whatever. You don't segregate them from the traffic at all?
So, no, here you can, because there'll be elevator on this side, elevator on this side.
Yeah.
So if you park on this side, you will have, at times, get to this side. You will have to. Okay.
And this is set up that Raj has a couple other locations, so it works effectively.
So we have a similar type of setup in a couple other facilities, and this actually is a little wider. The other ones are 25 feet, here we made it 30 feet, so there's much more space.
So a truck can come in there
No.
too? No trucks in there?
The trucks have to go and unload here, or they can come here and load here, this side here, but we won't have
On the
trucks.
outside doors?
Pardon?
The unload on the outside doors?
Yes. We've got 2 loading docks, the loading docks on this side, and some loading docks here. Most of the customers in self-storage come with pickup trucks and cars.
Little trailers and...
Yes.
Right.
So just for our own safety, we don't, because if it's a big truck, they take too much space here, whereas cars are shorter, so we can park more of them.
Is that, I don't know how to ask this question, where you show the cars parked, is that walled all the way up to the ceiling?
So this will be a firewall.
Okay, that was,
So their firewall will be maintained.
and it's right up to the ceiling, and you've got, what, vents up there, fans to keep the exhaust?
Oh, you're talking about the carbon monoxide and
Yeah.
No, we have a full system to take care of that. We have sensors, and we'll turn on the ventilation and things like that, whatever is required by the fire department. But we have built 2 of these already,
Yeah.
so we are very
Okay.
familiar.
Fire enclosed.
Yeah.
Fire rated.
Outside, is there access around the back of the building?
No,
Not for the public, no.
There's an egress door here. That's existing.
How about for fire vehicles, emergency vehicles
This is
in the
existing
back?
this is existing building,
Yeah,
and this is existing, so we are not changing anything to what's there right now. This is a very steep ledge here,
yeah.
but we are not changing anything in this area here. Okay. And there's no fire truck access even now.
That's what we're gonna
Distance.
talk with the fire department on. There would certainly be, people can get back there and do whatever they need to do. Truck is an issue because of the slopes and everything else.
But we did provide, in the back, there's an 18-foot wide paved drive, and then towards the end of the building, it goes down to 12, just because between the building and the ledge.
Yeah, so over
Well, then there
here,
is,
Phil,
there is a
Phil,
driveway there.
if you look on the screen here,
Right.
and on sheet C1, it shows bituminous concrete pavement
Yep.
behind the building.
Okay.
18 feet.
So there is a
Okay.
driveway there?
Yeah, and then it narrows down.
Not for the public, but
Yeah,
if
right.
someone had to get back there.
Okay. What's your plan for snow storage? Like having snow storage in a storage unit?
snow storage and storage unit.
I guess not, huh? I'm kidding. I'm pulling your leg.
Okay.
No. When they plow in the winter,
Yes.
where are they gonna store the snow? Where are they
So
gonna
they have to
push it?
store
Back
on
on
this
this, on
side.
this site plan, we've got a whole
Side.
large area over there. As I said, we've got 25 spaces. We don't need 25, so
Okay.
we can use any of that area.
And the water runoff from that when it,
That's berms.
Melts.
It'll all go where the existing pavement goes and out into the drainage system.
One of the comments that we had from Fuss and O'Neill, one of the comments from Fuss and O'Neill is to show actually on the plan the limits of the snow storage
Okay.
and how that works with drainage, so that'll be clarified.
what, the automobile place is, looking at this, it's east, what's on the west side? Is that red,
It's
is
the
that Red Barn?
The
Red
coffee
Barn.
shop.
It is, yeah,
thing,
okay.
yeah. Commercial use.
Okay, I think that answers my first round of questions, so we'll look it over a little. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, and I'm glad that the discussion went in this direction, and I heard some magic words. I'm on sheet C2, which shows that area, plan I have is upside down, but it shows the area to the east, that huge area, and it shows the contour lines, and it shows them being revised. There's only 3 contour lines there. So I was up there at the site, you know, doing what we do is check it out beforehand, and that pavement is in really bad shape up in there. I assume it doesn't, I couldn't see where it says specifically, other than the revisions to the contour lines. Is this, are you gonna overlay that? You're gonna grind it up?
No, that pavement is far beyond repair, so where we're showing contours, we'll pull up, I don't know if we're gonna bow mag it and vibrate it in place and use it as a base, or pull it up, but you'll have full depth reconstruction of
Can
the
you-
bituminous.
Can you put that as a note?
Yep.
On the, you know, anywhere that there's new concrete,
Yeah, so there's,
Asphalt
just to be
pavement.
clear, there's no existing pavement on the site that's gonna be maintained, it's all gonna be new.
okay.
But I'll put a note on that.
So, I'm on sheet C1 now, and it has the parking table. And based on the code, you're required to have a total of 9 parking spaces, and you're providing 29. So, and Counsel, you indicated that you don't need all those spaces anyways. So,
We needed them based on the basis of having the numbers in the front, because you're gonna have so many of your total parking as a percentage in front of the building. So we've added that, to be honest, just to make that. Do we think they'll all be used? Probably not. But it's also the situation where the pavement was there, so we just striped 25 of them.
right down at the corner of the Fable Lights is the Walgreens, and there, if you've noticed that parking lot, there's a grass area between the furthest parking spaces from the building and Oak Hill Road. That's space within the site for more parking, but Walgreens indicated that they didn't need it. So the board said, well, if you don't need it, then you don't have to build it. If business starts to boom, then you can come back and you'd be allowed to remove the grass and the landscaping and put in more spaces. Mrs. Luttrell opened the door for the lid discussion. And as we told a recent site plan project, you've got to take that seriously. Can't just talk about the things that the state drainage requirements require you to do anyways and say, well, that's our lid. So I heard you. You said you're going to go back and take a look at it. Looking at the plan here, that whole corner of the site, the far eastern corner, if you pretty much drew a line from the edge of the gravel road straight up, straight north, you'd create quite a bit of space, not only for green space, but for snow storage. You'd still have plenty of room for turning. You'd lose quite a few parking spaces, but if you don't need them, and you don't need to pave it, then when you grind it up, haul it away, there's your rain garden, there's your huge area there that you could turn to green space.
We'll take a look. The only condition being, as long as we say it's to some extent land bank, so that we don't violate the numbers of spaces out front, which are really the employee space, not the employee, the customer spaces. You know, because that can only be so much a percent of your entire parking. So if we take away, 8 and 3, we don't have that percentage anymore. As long as we're showing on the plan as a land bank, so that we could build them, so theoretically they're there, we still meet the percentage. If the board is happy with that, you know, we can look at that.
The board's got a history of quite a bit of flexibility when it comes to parking, because the regulations, you know, they're one size fits all. And, you know, if this was a train station, you'd probably need a lot more parking. But because of the nature of your use, which is an allowed use, you don't need all that parking, so why build it? And you'll solve another problem.
I mean, the other issue too, it's already there. We would never have gone in and say, we're gonna take green space and build these spaces, but it was already there, so we left it. But we'll go back to that.
So,
If I'm hearing you correctly, it's this corner down here. If we pull that away, that maybe becomes the rain gardens or additional detention to address the runoff problems that they're having off-site. And we could probably take these spaces along here and switch them 90 degrees and then retrieve those over to there. So we're not asking for banking or something like that. I hear what you're saying.
okay, that's the idea. You may solve your lid problem, and you may have an efficient way to store the snow, other than putting it inside, as Mr. Jenks suggested.
Yep.
I did get that.
You'd have to charge yourself rent for the snow? I don't know. Okay, so that, and those trees out in front are all gonna be wiped out? They're all gonna be taken down, the ones right along Route
The
9?
ones that are there now, yep.
And that's gonna be for the detention area?
Right.
Okay.
But there's new ones.
I'll open it up to the public. Mrs. Luttrell?
Just quickly, you said that you've built two other facilities. Where are they?
One in Mansfield, the other one in, one of them is in Mansfield, Massachusetts, and the other one in Chelmsford, Mass.
Oh, okay.
Hi. Yes, one is in Mansfield, and the other one is in Chelmsford, Mass.
Okay,
And they go by the name of All American Self Storage.
and
it's-
there's similar architecture to what's being
Yes.
proposed?
Yes.
Thank you.
They are all very modern type self storage, not the typical you see. They're very different, and we try also to use geothermal heating cooling systems in those. I don't know about this here, but we are working on it right now.
Yes, sir.
Leo Bartolini. I am the owner of the abutting property to these people, which I bought that back in 1998 from the original owner. And when we went to buy it, the building inspector would not let them do it without changing the property line. There was no property line in the property that is presently there today. And it came to the town, the building inspector, and they sent it to the zoning board to make a zoning issue on that property line, because one of my buildings only 12 feet off of it. Their building is only 6 feet off of it, up on the other end. And they made a condition on that property line being done that way. And it was done that way, and I was going to put a construction on the top of the hill near their building, and I was denied. I couldn't do it. So I just didn't do anything, and I went away with it. And the process of this, putting this building where they're putting it, there's some kind of a legal issue, and when they went in front of the zoning board didn't do anything about it or look into it. And I did bring it up to them. But they did nothing, and they approved them on this site. But there's something legally with that property line that has a condition. And one of the conditions that I remember, we have to stay like 48 feet away from that property line to build something, because the way it's done, we have lost the 30-foot property line on either side that you can't build. You have to stay 30 feet away. But where we're only 12 feet, and then there's 30 feet on their side, they'd have to be 48 feet. If I did mine and did something on my end, I have to be 58 feet away from the property line. So the thing is that it has to be just decided, the proper issue on this zoning issue on that property line. And the other major issue is the statement that they made about the plowing of the snow on the inside parking lot of the property line, because where I own the property, I have not built nothing. The garage and the building and everything has always been there. And that property line, if they dump snow on it, they're gonna dump it on my driveway and everything. So there's an issue with that also, you know? And I did not do anything with the property that I bought. I had to leave it because I had gone and I was coming to the planning board, and Mr. Morris was here when I wanted to build my self-storage, and we couldn't do it on the top of the other building because we couldn't be near the building. So we went up through a use variance up in the woods, way up in the back, out of the way, nowhere near it, up by the self-storage where we are. And it was in residential property that I had to get a variance to do and everything. But I could not build it down below because I couldn't be on the property, right against that building. Now, if you see, there's that blue thing there. That was a swimming pool, and which was from the owner's house. And when I bought it, the building inspector told us we had to move it. We couldn't leave it there because it was within 6 feet of the property line of the building. So we had to take and remove it out of there because they made us do it.
Where are you concerned about the snow storage?
Say that again?
Where are you concerned about the snow storage piece?
Right, see where go down by the building, where the new building is. Right, yeah, all right, there's the little road there, the driveway that they have.
There's no snow storage.
And the guy said he was gonna
west side
push
of
the
the site.
snow off the driveway there.
Yeah, there's no snow storage
Yeah,
for
right
the
there.
west
There
side
you
of the
go.
site.
All right, I'll go down there and you'll see if they push it, I don't know what the distance is between the driveway and the property line. But where my property line is, that's the edge of my road and everything. It's right on that property line. And it's roughly, I would say, I'd say anywhere from 6 to 8 feet lower than the other property. And their septic system is right there against us, right beside our property, and it's the same height as my property too. So the water issue there, they have to be very careful about that because of the way it is. But the major issue that I have is if it gets approved the way it is, then I may want to come back and build my building that I wanted to build, that they wouldn't let me approve because of the thing. So I just think this needs to be cleared. I'm not against what they're building. I'm against the use variance done by the town on the property.
Counsel?
As we talked about, the snow storage will be on the other side of the building. There may be some snow that's pushed off that driveway as it's plowed, but that closest point is probably 15 feet to that property line. As you can see, there's a lot more area there as well. So there may be a little, plow pushing of a driveway off that, but it's also graded so it goes back to the basin. So there shouldn't be any drainage issues associated with that. From the viewpoint of the location of the building, if you look at, can you go back to the Route 9 plan? Or the assessor's plan? If you look from Route 9 at the building, the right-hand front corner, there's actually a variance for that location of the corner of that building. That is a record, and I think we provided a copy of our application. So that's allowed to exist and remain. Building official has made a determination we're not changing that building at that location. The new expansion of the front of the building is a minimum, I think it's 55 or 56 feet from that westerly property line, so we comply in all respects with those setbacks requirements.
So when you come back, maybe you could blow up that side of the building, and the little driveway and the property line, and maybe even capture the distance with Mr. Bartolini's permission, to measure, and then come back with a more detailed plan of, we're saying 6, 8 feet, maybe 15 feet here and there. If we could take a closer look, and then your next door neighbor would have the benefit of having that detail
Sure.
and a chance to comment on it or say that it's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Hi, Freddie Gillespie, Chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission. And our commission looked at this plan today, and we'd like to thank the project proponent for their intention of using native plants. And we see that noted on the plan, but we have a few comments. And between Mr. Mills and Ms. Luttrell, they covered a lot of the reasons behind, and we will be writing a letter that, we will make sure you get a copy of. But I had a question. At the very beginning, you had a color picture of the building with the lawn in front. Is that something you can flip back to? Corinna? Can you flip back at the very beginning, the picture with the lawn? No?
Yeah.
And and to restate maybe what has been said, in this plan here, we'll be asking for, like it says, native wildflower, basin seed, what that entails, because many times people think something's native that's not, or they'll sell you something, so we'll comment. But this whole area here, is that grassy area, is that what's frontage on Route 9, or where is that?
That's between the abutting auto place and the site, looking across it. And I think it was explained when she was presenting it, we're just not showing anything there, so you can see the building. But there is landscaping, but on this, there's not one bit of landscaping shown, just because they were focusing on the building.
I understand, so, just where is that on here?
So that view right there?
Yeah.
Let's do the mics. Let's do the microphones.
This view right there. So all that's shown.
You're standing in the adjacent parking lot,
Yeah.
looking at the building.
There's only maybe a 5.
Something's wrong with the,
Better? Better? You can just use yours.
we'll just use the other one, Trevor.
So the shot that you see there is actually standing on the abutter's property looking at the site. So you're looking across that strip, and that strip there, you've got pine trees within 5 feet on the drive, but there's nothing shown. If we put the pine trees in there, you wouldn't see the building. So all of this would replace where that grass is.
That ghosting is the fence for the neighbor.
Thank you for that. So that wide-looking bulbous grassy area is really this narrow strip that's...
Yeah, and that's the abutting
Okay.
property.
All right, so, thank you for that. So the reason I bring that up is when we're talking about native seeding, you would not see anything looking like that in grassy. And I think you were already asked to identify which shrubs are where, but per definition, cultivars aren't native, so anything with a name like October Glory or any of the cultivars, we'd be looking for straight species, which are natives on the trees and shrubs. And I think that was mostly it. We'll write you a letter, but we already had mentioned that the vinca and the daylily are not native, so wherever those perennials and ground covers are, like if you're putting perennials in, we'd like to see those marked on the plan as well. And also, if you're doing the rain garden and adding, there's another opportunity. But the commission did want to thank you for, at least acknowledging, that this is an attempt to start to move in the direction that I think all of the projects will be going in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1 second. Counsel, you're going to be coming back. So, our next meeting is February 25th. Sounds, there's, I count, 28. From our consultant, you're at 28 comments. Will you,
We should have a response to comments within a week or so.
so you think if you come back on the 25th, it'll be productive?
Yep.
Okay.
I personally won't be here, but we'll have somebody else. I already have 2 hearings in 2 other towns.
Well, the current major site plan approval period ends on March 3rd. So if you come back on the 25th, then we're still okay,
Yep.
right? Okay. All right, so we don't have to do that. We were gonna go and prepare an extension, but we're not gonna, we don't
We'll
have to do
another-
that.
At least another week.
Be here regardless. Whether you get it in or not, you'll come to that meeting. If you need an extension
Right.
then, or you can request.
Yep.
Yep, okay, all right. Back to Mr. Bartolini.
Yeah, one thing that everybody I don't think knows, but on the outside of the lot, on the older lot, on the east side of the property, they have an access onto the power line that goes up to their 3 major towers that are up in the air, that the fire department also needs access to go up to it. And they have a special permit, as the owners, from the power company to have a road going up the power company, the power line there to get into that property and everything. So just something that I think you people should know about, that's on the edge of their lot and the bottom, that they have to get up, and that's how they get in and out of that property.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. Luttrell.
A question on the variance, just so I understand. So it looks like the property was subdivided, and they allowed the existing buildings to not meet the setbacks.
Yep.
So if you put a new building, it would have to meet the setbacks, but because the new portion of the building does.
Meets the setbacks.
Okay,
Yep.
so, all right, that's what I thought. Thank you.
So if there's nothing else for now, then we'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to February
25th.
25th,
Both of them. They just said
the hearings. Do we have a time?
Who did they go to?
Oh, okay.
They just continued them, right?
Yeah, but we,
Right, they're going to this is going to go to 220. So they can move into 7 p.m.
7 PM on the 25th, does that work?
and 7:05.
At 7:05 for the,
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue the public hearing for major site plan approval for 10 Turnpike Road for February 25th, 2019 at 7 PM. I also make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 10 Turnpike Road, lower impact development, for February 25th, 2019 at 7:05 PM, and here in the hearing room.
Second to both.
Motion's been made and seconded, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, we'll see you on the 25th.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
very much.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion item, Tree City. Want to thank our DPW director for waiting till this late hour to be here with us. I'll ask the, did you want to do that? Yep. I'll ask the town planner to give us the background on this discussion item, Tree City USA program. Karen, there was one other sheet here, I don't know, that I had that I didn't see it, so you can keep this one too. I don't think that was in what I gave you. Okay, we'll ask the town planner to bring us up to speed on this discussion item, Tree City.
The planning department working with, oh, sorry. The planning, I worked with Dawn on a tree bylaw to submit something for a town meeting that's coming up. And we initially submitted kind of a 2-page document that's in your packet with a bylaw that included a tree committee, et cetera, and a proclamation. We submitted that to Karen Galligan, DPW Director, for review, and also to Town Council for review. Karen Galligan gave us some good feedback in a memo in response to that initial bylaw draft that we had submitted. And we got some feedback through Town Administrator for some of Town Council's comments, which culminated in a second draft, which is in your packet.
With the yellow lines.
With the yellow lines, yes. It's dated 2/11/19. It should be at the beginning. So I received, based on that, well, let me back up. Tree City is a program that needs 4 parts. One of the parts is that the town has to be working under Chapter 87 of the Mass General Law for shade trees. And not being 100% sure if the town had ever adopted that because we didn't find any evidence. The DCR application for Tree City indicates that if you follow that and you live by it, that should be sufficient, but as long as the town, I believe, adopts Chapter 87. So we shortened the bylaw language, the draft bylaw language, to a much simpler version, not requiring a tree committee that required several members, et cetera, but to put it where it is right now, and that's under the DPW jurisdiction, with the existing tree warden role there. So I believe that this new language that has been shortened was found to be more acceptable by Karen, and Aldo added a few changes. Town Council did, which you see in yellow, to reference some old town meeting articles that pertain to this. and some other language, and I was informed Friday morning by Mark Purple, Town Administrator, that the new version was being inserted into the latest draft for the town warrant. Information was sent to the Board of Selectmen with all the documents that we had been working on, the DCR flyers, the Arbor Foundation flyers, Arbor Day Foundation. It was also opined by Town Council that originally we had the proclamation for Arbor Day, which the Board of Selectmen perform a proclamation through their meetings. Doesn't need to be in the bylaw, so that was removed as well. And if the Board of Selectmen choose to, it's their, choice to create an Arbor Day through a proclamation. So we provided the sample document that they would use. So here we are. I had asked Karen to attend based on the original lengthy language, and the comments that she had pertained to that. So we're hoping to kind of hash out if there's anything else residual that's concerning, so we can move forward to get it on keep it on the warrant.
So even those are the most recent actions, but we actually, it was more than a year ago, a consultant helped us with some research into the Tree City program, and we found out that what we're doing in Southborough, what the DPW is doing, is pretty much mostly there. There are the 4 criteria. One is that you have a tree warden, which we have had for a long time. One is that the town spends $2 per capita on a tree program. DPW has informed us that we spend a heck of a lot more than that on trees in the town. So, tree warden, the town spends money in a program. The Tree City third item refers to a ordinance, which would apply to a city or a bylaw that would address the trees. So this Article 40, is it still Article 42? It says here?
28. Oh, no, it's now Article 28.
Okay.
It's now referenced on the draft warrant as Article 28.
So this proposed Article 28 will fulfill one of the 4 requirements, which is to have a town ordinance or a bylaw that formalizes a tree program. And then, as Karina indicated, the reference to the Mass General Law 87, which is the shade trees. But our consulting with other towns that are tree cities indicated that some towns have formally adopted Chapter 87, and others have a bylaw that indicates that the town follows the provisions. And so that's the term that we felt more comfortable with, and is actually no different than our understanding of what the town has been doing for a long time. So even though this new proposed bylaw will be new, I think the way we're looking at it, it certainly opens the door for Southborough to become a tree city, but it also doesn't really change anything that we're already doing. So let's hear from our DPW director. We'd like to have the DPW's support and the selectmen's support on this. Karen, thanks for sticking around so late.
No problem. So actually with this, now that we've kind of hashed out what we already do, and because that was one of the things when I looked at it, I said, geez, it seems like we kind of do all this. So if if there is some sort of grant opportunities that you guys can get from that, and then just by doing this and making the proclamation each year, this language just makes sense. It's not committing us to doing anything new. So I thought this was great. I know Elda made a couple more changes. Those seem fine to me too. The one question I do have is that guy from UMass Arbor Day or whatever, I thought he was gonna make a plan to kinda, because we do have an issue when we go to replant. Because, you take a tree off down on Mount Vickery, there's really no right of way to plant it in. So, where is another good spot to go? And most of our through streets are tree lined, and most of the trees are in bad spots for actually their size and the type of tree. So, we get to the point, how many can we put in a park? How many can we put in different places? And the cemetery trees, that's a whole different cemetery planting plan. That's not the same. So we fund that through different money. So it would be great, and not as part of the bylaw, but if it was something that somebody came up with some kind of plan so that when we did go to, we did have some money to put a couple trees up. And we like to have them clustered so that they're easier for us to maintain and keep watered for the first year, and then they're on their own. But, the grass strip between the sidewalk and the road, that never works out. It's a bad spot. We're better off behind the sidewalks, and we start running out of right-of-way very quickly, and we don't really have a way to put them on people's lawn and then have to try to maintain them. That's difficult. So, but I thought he was coming up with one. I never saw one, but I don't know if he just gave up because it was too hard. It seems like that would have been a daunting task, so.
No, actually, he was working on it originally. Remember, he was
Yeah.
meeting with you and then coming back to me. And the last part of that was he was working with the GIS people for the shape files to get that organized. And then it kind of came to a halt because we moved on to the next thing, and that fell a little bit by the wayside. But I have reached out to him to see exactly how far he took that. And it's the
Excellent.
hopes to continue that, to maybe get that one last component done.
Yeah, that would be great to have, because it's just something that,
Yeah.
and actually sometimes I know when this board says, oh, part of mitigation's a tree, and then they come to me and they say, where do you want me to plant the tree? And I'm like, buy the tree and we'll go plant it when I find a spot. So, we've been able to plant them all, but it would be nice to actually have a planting plan and just say, right out here is where it's going, and it would be nice. So
Okay,
that would be
it's my
great.
hopes to follow up on that. If it can't be achieved under that prior work, because we worked that contract out pretty much to the end, maybe there's a little room to do something to finish that out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe we can just get what he started.
Okay.
And we can try to figure out if
That's a good
there's
idea.
a way to do it after.
So I know, Karen, you just saw this tonight, or at least this latest version. But are you able to say that you're okay with this? to
Yeah,
move
no, I
forward?
definitely, I think this, it seems like what we're doing, because we work under the shade tree and the scenic road designations mostly for everything. We've always been doing it that way.
Some of the ones that we've seen in our research, one of them said that the town shall replace on a one-to-one basis. If you cut a tree down, you've got to plant one. It would be hundreds of trees behind that
Yes.
one-to-one thing. So we took that out.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest ones that I didn't think we could actually meet.
Right, and so that's gone. And then it pretty much gives the final say to the tree warden on the type of the tree, the size, the location. But, and Chapter 87 uses the word that, it doesn't say the town shall provide funding for the planting of trees. It says may provide funding. So there's quite a bit of room in Chapter 87, and by reading it and comparing it to what we already do, it's an easy fit. Any questions? Mr. Jenks?
Are you the tree warden?
So technically, the selectmen are the tree warden. Technically, they took that over when we became a DPW. They have designated a member of my crew to be the tree warden.
So we have a designated person,
Yes.
okay? Is your accounting / record keeping of expenditures such that you can come up with a number, dollar amount we spend per capita?
We use the tree removal line item as what it is, because we don't move his time around that way, you know, the way the timesheets go. So, but we, basically the tree removal line item, which is really a tree contractor, we haven't been below 60 grand. And like, I try to keep it at least there. Our problem, obviously, if we get a storm, we go through that really quickly.
Sure. Okay, so that would make good evidence of
Yes.
that expense. Okay, thank you.
It also includes the value of donated trees. It's a pretty broad definition. So it's not just necessarily what the town spends, it's if trees are donated and planted, then the value of that, it counts also. But as Karen says, once you look into it and the definition of that, what's included in that $2 per capita, we're way over it. It's not even close. And it includes, trimming, cutting down, and planting.
Does it just count the ones we plant that survive? You don't have to answer that. That's.
Well, it's a double count, because then you have to cut down the one that didn't. Mrs. Latrell.
I'm wondering why we added to the extent applicable under the town shall follow the MGL Chapter 87 shade trees to the extent applicable.
I think there's 14 sections of Chapter 87, and I think might be the 14th or the 13th, talks about city trees. It's a paragraph that just refers to cities.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me, but
Section 13, right there. Powers and duties of tree wardens in cities. Section 13.
So my concern is that seems like a legal loophole. Like either we follow it or we don't. Like anything can be interpreted to be not applicable.
We didn't have that phrase in there. That was added by town council. So.
it's a very good question. If the as applicable just refers to that section 13, or if there's other sections, and somewhere else that we would know what was applicable. So that's probably something we'll have to tighten up a little bit before we get to town meeting. And I think this requires, does this require a public hearing?
No, it's code, not zoning bylaw,
It's outside of the zoning.
right,
Okay.
to my understanding.
Anyone else? Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Freddie Gillespie, Chair of the Open Space Preservation Commission. And our commission met this afternoon and looked at this bylaw and your intention to become a tree city. And we thank you, and we took a vote and we support this article at town meeting. And also, we have a pollinated native plant initiative, and that has enlarged because that's part of a bigger view, which is landscaping for wildlife. And we have now joined the National Wildlife Federation's Community Wildlife Habitat Certification Program. You might have seen there's a few around where people certify their backyard. This is to certify the town. It's town-wide. It will take us 2 to 4 years to get the certification, and by doing this bylaw, we'll get some points for that. We're highly supportive of it, and I'm hoping you'll be supportive of this program when you start to see it rolling out. But there's only 4 towns in the Commonwealth that have started this process. Only one has made it so far, which is Milton, and Concord is the other town in our area. So I asked, how many points do they have? Can we get a little friendly competition going on? So this is a great program that you're embarking on that will help us achieve this community wildlife habitat certification. So thank you. Oh, and if we will support you at town meeting, and if you want to say that, you can, the Open Space Commission.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else on Tree City?
Do you need me to follow up on that phrase, or?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion item on the master plan. Thanks, Karen.
Well,
Mr. Jenks.
Without disturbing the quorum tonight, I am going to make an exit.
Public may notice that Mr. Jenks has been pushed to the end of the table.
Before he leaves, I just want to make one comment. Can we move into like other discussion? I just want to point out that for the record, Mr. Jenks and I were both at the EDC's meeting on Thursday. There was some comment asking where the planning board was during that meeting, and for the record, I wanted noted that we were both there. So I hope you feel better.
Disguise? Yes, we made Mr. Jenks, well, he volunteered to sit at the end so he wouldn't give us his cold. Thank you, Phil.
I have a question on the color of those windows being determined to be part of the sign. And the question is, if the Red Barn Coffee is in a red house, how'd they get away with that? I'll leave you thinking about it.
Snow storage, Red Barn.
Okay, back to the agenda discussion item, master plan update. Karina.
Phil, before you leave, I have good news. The MAPC did select Southborough for technical assistance. I found out today. I didn't have a chance to tell anybody yet. So they estimated to start with $15,000 grant allocated through working hours for their assistance to get us going, along with some of the miscellaneous contract services budget that we have available and set aside. So that's the big highlight.
All because of your hard work?
Well, I think it's team, but thank you. It's a lot of people working on it. All right. To tell you, to quickly update you. All right, so this afternoon, the Technical Assistant Program Manager and Principal at MAPC, Ralph Wilmer, who I had explained last time, had worked on Southborough's 2008 master plan while he was working for the consultant. Said that he would be involved keeping kind of a peripheral view of the 1 or 2 people who are assigned from MAPC to work with the town. They're going to help us develop a scope for the amount of money we have available to get started. I explained to him that we have a master plan committee set up and that it was almost filled. We're short just 3 people who are working on getting voted in with their boards. I asked him if it was smart to already organize a first meeting with the master plan committee, or if we should wait. He said, well, if they want to meet to get to know each other, organize, chair, whatever, discuss what time to meet, he said that would probably be good if they do it to that level. And then they would, MAPC is going to contact me next week to determine who's going to be assigned to us, when we should meet, and just get going on it, what the first steps are. So I was hoping to maybe send out a schedule through Mimi and Andy's looking at it first to get an idea of when the master plan committee could meet, because there's a lot of people, and so it'll be tough to get everyone at the same time. But if we start sooner than later, it might take a week to get everybody at one spot, but at least we'll get most people.
Maybe we can do it before town meeting. Like,
Oh, yeah.
the day of town meeting.
Oh.
Everyone will be there. Trying to fill in for Phil.
So that being said, we have 5 people to appoint. The planning board has 5 people that need to be appointed this evening.
And those people are?
We have David Nixon from the Recreation Commission, Catherine McKee from the Southborough Trails Commission, Karen Hanlon Shimkus, member at large, Richard Wallace, he's on the Library Board of Trustees, but he'll be a member at large, Marguerite Landry, she is also on the Library Board of Trustees and on Youth and Family Services, but she was interested in being member at large.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? 3-0. They are appointed.
Okay. And they have to get sworn in within 15 days of today. So I'll get their letters into the town clerk tomorrow and let them know their deadline. Okay.
Thank you. That's great news.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great news.
Sorry I inundated you with all the emails. Andy's still been off the hook because I've only been copying you, Mimi.
Is that it on the master plan update?
It is.
And appointment of master plan committee members. Next item is other business properly before the board, the planner's report.
All right. Goodness. Planner's report. Just want to update the board that we posted the position for business admin on the Mass Municipal Association website. I sent it out on the Mass Planners email forum, and Vanessa Hale has it posted on the town website under job opportunities. So we're working on that. When we have a significant or valid amount of resumes, then I'll ask the board who will be on the selection team.
How much planning experience do you need?
I think it has a lot to do with approach and how you take on work. You know, if you want to be a team player and you want to take on the work and you understand it's very detailed and there's time frames and legal issues and you enjoy that, that's probably the biggest leap, because I think you can learn the specific planning pieces. But it does require, full time, because there's a lot of work.
Thank you.
So, Karina, what's the, this is the administrative office position in the planning department.
Correct. Business administrator to the planning department,
And
planning board.
it's a 40-hour work week.
It is.
It's 8 to 5, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yes.
And it's 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, and then 8 a.m. to noon on Friday.
Correct.
And those are the same hours that the town hall is open
Correct.
to the public. And how much does the position, what's the,
The midpoint?
yeah,
The midpoint, hourly rate is $26.95. We currently have, the goal is 22 and change to $24 an hour, depending on experience and skill level. But, you know, that is the mid-range for that grade. So when they post these, that's the rate that they put there.
So when somebody goes to those sources that you mentioned at the beginning, they'll see all of that.
Correct. Right? That's correct.
Okay. So hopefully somebody out there that's still watching this at 10:30 at night or tomorrow when it's replayed will find some interest in it and maybe apply. What else?
All right, I'm still working on, we want to do a couple of open space monitoring, so I'm going to work on that still, so there's not much to talk there. We wanted to talk about the site plan construction phase monitoring services. We can talk about that when we have a little bit emptier agenda, maybe?
Why don't you put that on the, yeah, we'll try that for the next meeting, and then, because our town meeting workload is only one article, maybe we could also put that on the agenda for our Saturday town meeting,
March 23rd.
pre-town meeting that we usually have before the town meeting.
Okay, can do that. This morning, we had an informational meeting with EDC members and Board of Selectmen members, and Phil, Jenks, and Dawn were there to discuss the New England Sports Center for Women that's potentially at the Dell EMC property. It was a good meeting, found out some information. They'll be meeting Thursday with Town Administrator, EDC. They've invited me and Conservation to also attend that meeting Thursday to meet with the stakeholder, the new applicant, Kate Painter. Update, I spoke with Peter Bemis, and he's potentially submitting plans for Fayville Hall, 4042 Central Street, for the project went to John D. Piscoli.
John Deli
Deli
Pasquale.
Pasquale, I'm sorry, can't remember names very well. And he's going to turn it into an antique or an auction place, but an old-fashioned auction facility. So Peter Bemis is going to come in with a major site plan application, a lid, and an adaptive reuse for historic buildings special permit, which I'm pretty sure is, the planning board is the special permit granting authority, because they have to come through site plan here, so it's going to be together. Okay.
So your mention of Mr. Bemis, he's serving as the engineer
Correct.
for the new owner.
Correct.
Okay.
Engineering Design Consultants, who's owned by Peter Bemis. He's currently applied at Conservation for stormwater management permit for a new parking lot that's being developed there. It's kind of an existing space, but it's being redeveloped into a paved parking area. I'm meeting with him tomorrow to go over what's required. So if you had any questions, let me know. Mass DOT has a pre-construction meeting for the Main Street project. That will be next Thursday, February 14th. I didn't intend to go because Conservation's going and EDC's going, and they were going to get back to me so I can not lose time in the office right now. But it's at 10 a.m. in Worcester at the District 3 office.
That's the one right near UMass Medical?
Medical, right. Unless they moved, but I think that's where they are still. So that's at 10, but Karen Galligan will be there and several other, police chief, fire chief, et cetera. If you specifically want me to go, I will. But I think I'll get good feedback from everybody there. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the meeting minutes from September 17th, 2018, as written.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Mills?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the meeting minutes from November 19th, 2018, as written.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Mr. Mills?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the meeting minutes from December 17th, 2018, as written.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
All in favor?
Oh, sorry.
3-0.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pause for a moment so Mimi can finish the meeting minutes from January 28th, 2019. Make a motion we approve the meeting minutes for January 28th, 2019, as written.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Very good. That gets us right up to date.
There's one more I'm working on.
There's one that, yeah,
Sorry.
Kate's working
I'm working on one more.
And we have two that, Pam had drafted, one very extensive one and a short one. We're gonna have those for the next meeting too, so then we'll be caught
Caught
up.
up.
3 left. And tonight.
You guys are a great team, and really, this was a high priority for the last couple of months, and now that we get the team working it, it's very, very, very good success with this. Thank you.
Well, I can't
Way to do it.
thank Kate enough, because she's been so active on it and
It's my
motivated.
job.
You've done it
It's-
perfectly.
It's not just the quantity, it's the quality. They're really excellent meeting minutes, easy to follow.
They're a little long, sorry.
Is that because the meetings are long?
Maybe.
Mr. Mills?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? We're adjourned.